Everybody get to their seat. We're going to start. Okay, don't listen to me. That worked.
I'll get to you afterwards.
And we don't have anybody here to record tonight or take votes. Okay, that's great. Any idea, Max, why we don't have recording secretary tonight? Okay. Just for roll calls.
Barraza.
Here.
Lancy. Beck.
Here.
Malay.
Here.
Malone.
Here.
Wolf.
Here.
Sulfa.
Here.
Barron.
Here.
Lehman.
Here.
Lohman. Pieper.
Here.
Fehrenbach.
Here.
Anderson. White.
Here.
All right, so there's 3 absent. So 11 present, 3 absent.
Okay, we have the necessary quorum. Reminder to please speak into the microphone tonight. If you come up to use the podium, please adjust it and make sure you can see the little green light come on so we can get you on the broadcast. Up next is items to be removed, added, or changed. Do we have anything?
We do not.
Okay, right on then to number 4, which is matters from the public for items not on the agenda. Is anybody here for anything not on the agenda? Okay, we'll go right to the consent agenda. Barron.
Thank you. The consent agenda reads as follows. Approval. Ordinance 2026-23, amending the official zoning map at 117 South Prairie Street. I move we approve the consent agenda as read.
Second.
Shortest one ever.
Okay. Motion by Barron, second by Sulfa. All those in favor? Aye.
The official zoning
Opposed?
map at 117.
Okay. All right, then we'll move on to the regular agenda. Up first is item 6.1, authorizing execution of professional services agreement with Johnson Lasky Kindlin Architects for exterior building conditions assessment.
Alrighty, so I have Kara Johnston with JLK, which is also Johnson, Lasky, and Kindlin here with me tonight. The Community and Economic Development Department is bringing forth an approval of a contract with JLK to perform the exterior building conditions assessment for properties within the historic district. This was included in the 2026 budget for the district at a total of $60,000. Today, we have what we're calling Phase 1, which is the 75 structures or properties that are designated significant within the district as part of this contract for a total of $37,700. And we intend to come back with a Phase 2 contract for the contributing structures as well as our landmark structures. The reason we're breaking this up is that the city staff is pursuing a grant with the state of Illinois for certified local governments. And we hope to find out if we obtain that grant here in June or early July. Once that is known, we'll initiate Phase 2 contract with JLK if this contract is approved tonight. I'm available for questions, but I believe Kara does have a few things she'd like to say about their firm.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kara Johnston. I'm the Director of Historic Preservation at JLK Architects. We've been in business since 1992. We're women-owned and majority women-run in Chicago. We specialize in historic buildings from planning all the way to construction. So happy to be here and be your collaborative partner and make sure that this survey really does work for you.
Do you have any questions? Go ahead, Dustin.
I was just going to ask, is the scope of Phase 2 expected to be somewhat similar to Phase 1 in terms of the 2 types of structures being analyzed?
Yeah, the scope will be identical. So in order to, the goal is to have this identical assessment done. The difference will be, it'll be contributing properties and our one singular landmark, which is the Campana building. But we are going to be collecting the same data points, same format, same goals to work with property owners.
I meant in terms of number of properties, roughly.
Number of properties, I believe it's a few more, maybe closer to 100. That being said, the contributing structures, a lot of them are smaller in nature. They're not as large as like the challenge properties or some of BEI's holdings where they have their limestone structures. So those will take a little bit more time than the 75. structures that we have in the significant just because their age and materials are vastly different.
Okay, so it will likely be a similar amount, and obviously nothing's being tied to that right now, but just planning ahead.
Yeah, based on estimations, if we are awarded the grant in the amount requested, we believe we'll be under budget based on the cost estimates. If we are not awarded the grant, there may be either removal of Campana or a modest budget increase request at that time, but that will be brought forth at a different time to discuss.
Yeah, and just as a reminder, the scope of work here is to give us a more robust understanding of our historic preservation situation, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so the goal is to assess the exterior building conditions of all 75 properties. It's what JLK calls a sidewalk assessment, meaning it's non-intrusive. It's not full in depth. They're not spending hours on each building, but they are identifying the major points and concerns. They'll be taking photos and then providing a full assessment for staff. That will give staff the tools to work with these property owners and then work towards preserving the buildings and preventing demolition by neglect. That is what the city council tasks staff with doing. And we feel that JLK is the most appropriate firm to work with on this.
Yeah, I think this is a pretty exciting project because we've run into some frustrations in the past with sort of how we've cataloged and identified them, sort of what counts as contributing and not, what parts of buildings are and are not. So it's going to be nice to have kind of robust, detailed look into that. So I'm really excited for this project. Thank you.
Yes, and the findings of that will also help, the HPC in their determination should other buildings be reassessed, based on their designation in the future.
Yeah, our goal really is to make this a usable study for you, right? The worst thing that could happen is that this survey sits on a shelf, right? It has to be functional data that you can use to make decisions in the future. That's our goal.
Given that we've had a couple of people look at some of these properties, expecting to open a business, and they get in there, emphasis on get in there, and they find structural issues, right? So if we're going to do a sidewalk exterior evaluation on these properties, how are we going to pick up the internal structural issues that have led to a lot of these issues that we've been kind of reviewing?
So the scope of this was never for the internal. That being said, a lot of issues can be identified from the exterior of a building. So, they can find, and Kara can speak to this more, but based on certain trends and patterns they find on the buildings, it can lead to the need for further investigation. So there will be some recommendations for property owners because of X, Y, Z. You should look at this because based on our experience, we find that this leads to water intrusion. So that is the intent of this. That being said, we believe that this will be a first step towards working and making sure that the building envelope is secure, it's watertight, it's safe. And as property owners go through everything, they would have the right, if they want to, contact JLK for further assessments or to work with another architect in that field that may specialize in what they're looking to do.
Yes, I just wanted to say, I think this is something that, we've talked about for a long time, and it's supposed to be part of what our Historical Preservation Commission looks at on a regular basis. And it's been quite a while since one of these was done. And with the conditions we've had with a couple of buildings that, they look okay on the outside, we don't know what to look at. They do. And that's, I think, the big goal here is to take that expertise that's there and then turn it into something that we can actually share with the property owners or the occupants of the building so that they can figure out how they're going to do that, or if there's any way that we can help them do that. So that way you preserve the buildings and then worry about how to fix the inside of them. Okay. There are no other comments. Can I have a motion to recommend to council resolution 2667R? So moved.
Okay.
Motion by Malone, second by Beck. All those in favor? Aye. Okay, that'll go on to council, the next council meeting with a positive recommendation, and look forward to you coming out here and working on it.
We're very excited. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Alderman Wolf, would you like that on consent or regular agenda?
Regular agenda, I think we should talk about it.
Ready?
Okay, up next is 6.2 is ordinance 2026-022, variance for principal structure setback. Drew?
Thank you, Chair Wolf. The item before you tonight, or this item is ordinance 2622, which will be a grant of variance for a principal structure setback for residents on 213 Evergreen. The Plan Commission and Zoning Board of Appeals did review this at their last meeting on May 20th. There was a review of basically it's about a 400 square foot addition. They're looking to keep it in line with the existing residence. This was a residence that was constructed under King County jurisdiction and later annexed into the city in 2022. We also rezoned it in 2024. There's a number of conditions that through the course of the Plan Commission and Zoning Board of Appeals review that the Zoning Board found contributed to the need for a variance request here. Those included a sanitary line that bisects the property, the configuration and location of the residence as it was approved under the zoning jurisdiction of King County, as well as the changing status of the property as indicated through those different processes. As part of the Zoning Board of Appeals review, there was a comment letter received from a neighboring resident with some concerns about drainage in regards to a sump line, as well as just overall proposal of the project. As part of that, the zoning board did include in their recommendation a condition of approval, essentially for review and approval by the city engineer of the proposed addition. But with that one recommended change, the zoning board did recommend approval of the variance as requested by the applicant. So we do recommend approval consistent with that zoning board recommendation, and would note the applicant is present if there's any questions, but staff can also answer those questions too.
Do you have any questions?
Does the engineer's review it'll come later at this point once they kind of get drawings and permits issued?
Yeah, usually it would be with just a building permit, there would be that type of review. We did want to make it a little more clear that that would be a requirement in this case, because there is some ability basically for small additions to not require that full level of review. But in consulting with the city engineer, Tim did suggest or did recommend that in this case we do have that specifically. Basically, there would be a need to review a grading plan for the addition, and in the case of the sump line that was identified, the engineering department would work with the applicant on correcting that location and putting it into a situation that should have no impact to the neighbors.
Okay, and I'm sorry, so the sort of recommendation that might come out of that would be something like move the sump line, put in a French drain. Would that be the level, or would it be sort of like a more substantial?
Most likely it would be probably kind of relocating where that point of water is coming from. There are some items in our code today. Again, this was developed, outside of our jurisdiction, but basically that requires some minimum separation. I believe it's around 8 feet or so from a property line. So the engineering department would work with the applicant on correcting that and putting it in a location that, again, should at least maybe move some of that water away from potentially from going out to neighboring property.
I know when we got information of this, Lee and I both did with the homeowner, talked to staff and community development about the fact that this house was built when it was still in a township, county jurisdiction, and it probably would have been allowed exactly where they're putting it now within that recommendation, and within their rules. So we wanted to figure out how they could get this done as soon as they could so that they can get it built when they wanted to build it and get the variance approved. So that way it fits into that lot.
One of the challenges, with the lot essentially is to meet that 30-foot setback, you're basically squeezing the addition, or you're moving it away from the doorway that they're trying to use. So there's a number of kind of locational.
It really is just replacing a deck with a structure. Yeah. When all reality is what's there. Yeah.
I went out and visited with the Hannahs, and as you said, this used to be unincorporated in Batavia. It's on big, large lots, and the structure is nowhere near another building. It really is quite separated. So we're not even talking about a variance where it's coming right up to somebody else's house. Like, it's all very large yard spaces all around this. And as far as I know, if their plans haven't changed, it is just replacing a deck that is currently there. So the structure itself attached to the house is not, it's not like they're adding on this very large addition or anything.
Else?
No, you know what, I just comment. So when it comes to decks, very familiar with this process in Batavia. For a long time, we did not really regulate decks at all. So a lot of these homes, myself, my home included, they inherited a deck that wasn't in compliance. They only find out when they go to replace it or do major modifications. So not abnormal to have a deck that's not near a house. You have to come to city council for modification approval.
No other comments? Look for a motion to recommend to council ordinance 2026-022.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Baraza. All those in favor? Aye. Okay. I think we can put that on the consent agenda. It's not a big deal. Okay. Well, that'll be on our next city council meeting. So that should get approved at the next council meeting for you. Okay. Okay. Next is 6.3, which is resolution 2026-066R, authorizing execution of redevelopment agreement with Fox River Affordable Housing Corporation for 400 South River Street.
Thank you. This is the next step on the South River Street project that we have already had zoning approval for. This is the redevelopment agreement for this property that we had talked about before and had some general consensus from the council on. Since that time, we had a few changes to that. The original incentive was $1.2 million out of TIF funds. Since that time, there were some discussions with the developer regarding tax abatements that they are eligible for because of the type of project this is under state law. And so they are asking to implement those tax abatements. And as part of that, we went back and negotiated with them and said, well, the city needs to have some of itself made whole. We provide services for this property and everything else. We're providing you a large incentive. So we'd like to talk about, renegotiating how much we're going to give and what other things we can do to pay for the cost of city services. So during that process, we negotiated a reduction in the TIF grant from $1.2 million to $1 million. And then we added into that a payment in lieu of taxes or a pilot that would be $15,000 initially. And then that would go up by 3% a year until their tax incentive expires in 15 years. And then it would go back to the normal property taxes as part of that. We anticipate that once the project is completed, we'll be generating about $155,000 a year in property taxes in general. Just because of the type of facility that is. But the $15,000 plus the escalator, that would be about what the city would get as part of the property taxes anyway to pay for the city services from the property. So, that is what the basic part of the agreement is. There are some language in there regarding clawback provisions in case they don't, operate within a specified period of time of 5 years. Open book that we can, make sure that everything is above board, and we can make sure that everything is according to Hoyle. The project, as we've kind of talked about before, but it does generate certain benefits in regards to employment opportunities during construction, as well as any on-site staff that may be there. It does meet the city's housing goals and strategic plan, which was important for us to have. It is additional housing near downtown, so it's walkable to downtown. There's synergy with with adjacent redevelopment, as well as the South River Street plan, where we look to have some changes in land use and improvements and investment in that area. Adaptive reuse of a property that really has not been productive. It's been basically a vacant quarry that hasn't been generating substantive amounts of property tax or revenue for us. It's alignment with the city's plans in relation to the South River Street plan, which we had just adopted. And eventually there would be some significant property tax revenue growth, as well as population, which generates head taxes. So we think it's a win situation for the city as well as the developer. And so we are recommending approval of this redevelopment agreement. They are represented here tonight in case you have any questions, or do you want to bring anything up? Or?
Anybody have any questions? Malone?
Yeah, this might be a little bit technical, and I'm curious in the memo here. It has this line that without the incentive, the unlevered internal rate of return would be 0.52. With the incentive, the IRR is 0.13. What is an unlevered internal rate of return?
That's when there's no incentive.
Okay, and then with the incentive, it would be 0.13, negative 0.13%.
It's not going to generate a lot of benefit, from if this were a regular development, nobody would build this. But because this is involving certain types of other incentive funds and tax credits and things like that, that's why they want to build it for that. And I don't know, did you want to bring that up at all?
And so that's the rate of return for the developer. I was just sort of curious what that rate of return, whose rate of return is that? That's my question.
Right. So there are basically two rates of return that are calculated. One for the developer, which would be the Fox River Affordable Housing Corporation. One for the tax credit investor. So tax credit investor is the one making the quote big bucks. So that is tax credit syndicator out of the East Coast. Them and their investors will be making a much higher return primarily on the value of the tax credits, along with the depreciation and all the taxable losses that they get to collect over 15 years. The developer, they will get a fee that's calculated by a formula established by the Illinois Housing Development Authority, or IDA. And so the developer will net about $1.3 million between paid and deferred developer fee. So any cash flow that they do receive, it's usually almost non-existent in the first 15 years. If there is, it's negligible, which is why you do see that minimal or negative IRR.
Thank you for that. It's sort of a term of art that I wanted to understand.
Absolutely.
Forward. Thank you.
Rebecca?
So on a similar topic, so in the same memo, around the same line, it says Baker Tilly concluded that, but for the provision of the proposed TIF incentive, this project would not be financially feasible, right? So when you read a sentence like that, the first question comes to mind. Keep in mind, we are building new construction on an old quarry. If your development costs rise, who's picking up that bill?
That would be the developer's cost.
Okay.
Yeah.
So at what point do they realize that, so are they going to come back to us and ask for more incentive to do that kind of?
Well, not as part of the redevelopment agreement, because this is what we're offering them, and this is what's in exchange. Now, if all of a sudden costs be excessive and they say that we need more, they're going to have to come back and say they need more. They're going to have to retool the development, or they're going to have to say, we just can't make it work. One of those things would have to happen. They don't own the land yet. They haven't purchased it yet. Our monies would be used primarily for purchasing the land. So,
and if it doesn't go through, are we going to become just owners of the land and that's it, or like what happens if it falls apart?
Yeah, if it falls apart under the agreement, we have the clawback. They could either pay us back, or if they can't pay us back, then we would get the land. So, and then we can decide what we want to do with it at that point.
Kind of answering my own question as I'm thinking it out loud, so forgive me if I just stop mid-sentence. But along those same lines, I was just thinking about that upfront investment of $1 million. And if in our TIF discussions, if we ever, or what was considered in terms of reducing our kind of upfront exposure, like doling it out in increments over the course of construction. But then I was thinking about the clawback of we inherit the property, maybe we don't get to put that in there if we're only investing little bits at a time. So what were those discussions like?
Yeah, so in this case, the easiest thing was the lump sum, just to give them the $1 million in this case to buy the land. The problem is that, if we are going to move ahead with TIF 7, as we've been talking about, that truncates TIF 3 to an extent. So the eastern part of TIF 3 goes away, which includes this property. So we would not be able to pay that over time because there would be no TIF district. So we kind of have to pay it in the lump sum. And then that's what the clawback is for, that if they don't move ahead, we have the ability to get that money back from either the money back or the land from them if they don't proceed.
Anybody else have any questions? I guess the only one I have is, after this goes through, how long does it take you to get the property and get the building started?
And what is the cost of the land again?
$28 million. It's about $27.5 million. We are estimated a 14-month construction period. We are actively garnering our permits now so that hopefully we can hit the ground running. We project about a July closing date. And if we have the permits, then, we can start construction. It's in our best interest to, get the unit built as soon as possible. We don't want to rush to it. We want to do the construction correctly, but, there are a lot of financial incentives and financial impacts of the project with our equity investment partner. So the sooner we can build it, get it in service, and get it, at least 90% occupied, the tax credits kick in, and things kind of flow from there.
And you said 27,500,000 for the project cost?
Yeah.
So that
It fluctuates a little bit with interest rates until those are locked. But yes, the current total development cost is about $27.5 million.
How much is the cost of the land? I'm looking at your table here real quick, trying to find it.
Land was 1.25.
Any other questions? Someone like to recommend this to council? Resolution 2026-066R.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Beck, second by Malone. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. That'll go on the regular agenda. So we can talk about that Monday night. Thank you. All right, now we'll move on to item 6.4, which is discussion of the city administrator performance appraisal form. Do you want to take that, Robin? Sure. Thank you.
Okay. So we've had this discussion a few times. It's come up in the past where we have discussed, every year it seems like it comes up when we're approving the annual renewal of contracts, that we should probably have something a little more formalized in the form of feedback to the city administrator from the council. So Chris and Jennifer and I worked on this. It's a draft, but the overall goal of this is to support progression toward the goals articulated in the strategic plan. And it gives us a chance to evaluate our overall working relationship between the city administrator and the council, how both sides are working together to ensure progress toward our goals, and to identify any obstacles, pain points that maybe we need to develop some new processes around. So also gives us a reference point for conversations throughout the year and establishes a written record for us every year of all of us being able to give our input and feedback. And I think it just is a helpful thing to have, so that we're not just addressing things as they come up. We have just kind of a set upon or agreed upon set of criteria that we can look at. So this is the draft that we came up with. I sent it out to you guys a few weeks ago. I had a couple people give some feedback to me. I don't know if Jennifer, you might have gotten some separate. Okay. So I think what I would propose is that we, kind of look at it. Anybody who, wants to add, take something out, there's something it's not quite measuring, and just get a good draft going. And I think the best way to really test it out is just to do it and then see if it accurately kind of gives us what we want, right? So if we all kind of go through, do the quantitative rating, and then whatever comments or qualitative piece we put in there, do a summary of that, and then just kind of look at that outcome and see how we feel about it. Does this tool seem like it's doing the job that we need it to do? And if it doesn't, then, then we work on it some more. I think that, we could probably, at some point it should be, good enough. I don't know that we're ever going to get it perfect. And I think that we could probably go on and on with this indefinitely if we wanted to. But the point is just to get a document that, for the most part, gives us a way to communicate our feedback, both positive and, things that we think we need to work on, and then to have that established. So that's where we came from with that. And everybody should have the form. So comments from anyone?
Can we just start by each category? Because I'll take notes as we do this on
perfect.
the thing. So
Thank you.
So category 1 under leadership.
Can I ask a general question before we get into that? So I'm just curious, if the rating scale is used, and I know there will be space for comments, but depending on like what the scale or, the ratings are, how is that feedback going to be directly used to communicate like where areas need to be improved? Does that make sense? Like, because it can be kind of vague. Like, let's just say one of these categories is a little bit lower than the other. It can be a whole host of reasons why that might be a little bit lower, right? And so then how will we take that information to use it in a meaningful way?
So could you maybe give like an example or so?
Maybe I can answer that. I mean,
Go ahead.
So I think that's what the narratives are for.
Okay.
I mean, basically, if you're giving them a 5 or a 4, there's no issues.
Yeah.
If you're giving them something lower, make sure you include the narrative as to why
say
you're
why.
Okay.
not saying they're a 5 or a 4.
Yeah.
Right.
And if 3 or 4 or 5 people come up with the same, needs improvement section with a comment with it, then those are the things to me that have to get communicated. And then that gets identified in that particular year's review. And then subsequently, the next year, the things that needed improvement, we will ask those questions, or you will ask those questions of, okay, did that improve? Did that, those 5 things that were given to her
Or even
to
over
change?
the course of the year as things come up, if we're like, it's been 6 months and we mentioned this, and then it came up again, and it's kind of that reference point to where this is how and when this was communicated, and we can even, ask for, updates or, status on certain things if they're timely. I totally just lost my train of thought.
But basically, just for us all to be on the same page, if you're going to use a lower number in the rating scale, make sure you are putting a reason in there. Don't just drop a number in.
Right.
Because that's not going to be beneficial for anybody.
Right. And ideally, when it does come back for discussion, once it's done, you would have some possible recommendations to go along with that as well.
And one thing that we're going to do is, especially because people might have different narratives, we're going to kind of like within the leadership category, like put everything into like ChatGPT and then have it like polish it. So then that way it kind of like, it's not like this whole long list where people are like, oh, we can see like, eventually we would like to move to where it's done anonymously and it kind of does that, but that's something that we have to take a look at and work with. But that was kind of what we talked about, bouncing around to get themes together and everything.
And if there's also concerns about whether you can provide analysis for a particular thing, we could always add in here, just don't have enough information to comment on that, because that's perfectly appropriate too. Or I don't have the experience to be able to say if this is bad or good, because you know what? That's the whole thing, is none of us are city administrators. That's our real job. So in order to say, maybe you don't have the knowledge base to comment, and you can always put that in the narrative as well. I think that's something that should be pointed out too.
Yeah, and invariably at some point, somebody's going to be on the council and say, I've only been here for 6 weeks. I have no idea how to quantify these questions or answer these questions. And that's okay. But if you have the questions and you agree on what the questions are and how you're going to rate that, I think that's then useful data year after year after year.
I was going to say something similar, that I feel that I wouldn't be able to adequately respond to some of them. And maybe that's a good data point. I'm not recommending we take anything away yet, but then if there's, a majority of us are like, don't have enough information, then we can drop that question.
That makes sense. Yeah, absolutely.
That's why it's important to kind of just get it out there and go through the process and see like, and as Robin talked about, because she's an expert on this. They're going through this. It was like, it was great working with her, but I think it'll be important is once we go through it that we kind of come back together pretty quickly after and give that feedback, as opposed to like waiting until the next time, but getting that immediate feedback and making those adjustments will be helpful because it's fresh in our minds.
Tony, did you have something?
Yep, the rating scale, is the plan to do a cumulative rating? And how is that determined?
I would think per category would make more sense.
But cumulative among the whole council?
Yeah, like we would, well, and we can discuss that. Like, I was thinking that we would give, like just the average of,
so that's
rating,
and,
which can be good and can be bad. I mean, so
Exactly.
it could skew. So we
The
could give a
narrative's going to be the
range.
important part.
There's a couple, I mean, we could do a range, like, your low score was this, your high score was that, or just give a, just even a distribution of how the scores landed. That might be helpful.
Yeah, I think that's more appropriate, because what
Okay,
I was getting
yeah,
at,
you're
if we just did an average, that.
If you got a 1 and a 5 and you
exactly.
get a 2,
Then you're
4, 5,
effective.
you're like,
So
okay.
so half the
Yeah.
council says 1, half the council
Not as
says 5,
useful.
and then it's
Sure.
determined they're
Do
effective.
it
So
just-
Do you mind if I jump in real quick on that? Just because we do need to keep in mind that this is all FOIA-able. So even if we did do that, the administrator could FOIA their own records and pull what we needed. So just so we're keeping in mind, even though we may intend for some anonymity, I don't think we can make it anonymous, right? So.
Okay.
When it comes to reviews, unfortunately, some people look at them as their opportunity for revenge, right? So I think you do have to average it out, because we will get somebody. There's 14 of us. I won't be that person, but there'll be somebody who'll be like, "This is my chance," right? And kind of go through all that stuff. You do want to filter out that noise. So that's the main reason why you want to do the aggregated rating.
I just have a few more questions because this is new for us doing this. 3 questions. Do we know what other municipalities are doing? Like, are other towns doing things like this with their city administrator?
We took this from the library.
That this is what they do for their, okay. Is this something that will be done in exec session because it is a performance review? And then my other one is, we see one side of a city administrator or a director or whatever, in this case is the city administrator. But what about the people who on staff who work directly with them? They probably have a completely different perspective that we don't get because we're not day in, day out. So is that something we're considering also using,
I think we really have to remember what the scope of this actually is. And it really is to focus on the working relationship between council and administrator. So I think what you're talking about really does fall on the staff side of it. And I don't know that that's necessarily something that would fall within our scope. Because that is really pretty in-depth. It can be really complex and in-depth. And I don't even know if legally it would make sense for us to even get into that. So, and I also kind of want to make sure that we're remembering the point of this is really to develop, to improve the relationship and give the working relationship and have this opportunity to express our feelings on what areas we think are important so that we can, again, identify points we need to improve on. I'm not necessarily we're handing down this report card, it really, it should be more assessment than, performance evaluation. Because we approve the recommendation, and this seems to be part of that responsibility. If we're going to approve a recommendation, we should be able to have something that says why we're approving a recommendation. But getting beyond that, I think that might get to be too beyond our scope.
I will add, there may be an opportunity once we refine this, because trying to go in and do so much might become overwhelming. There might be an opportunity to do a 360 with the outside administrators, like this school board or the school library, if we feel like we want to get some of that kind of feedback from some of those directors that she works with within the community.
Other comments, questions? The record reflect that Alderperson Lohman got here at 7:40. We're right in the middle of the discussion about the review.
Listening on my way here. So I I'm glad I heard of those questions that people were saying. I really, like people were saying, wasn't really sure what questions I'm supposed to be asking because I'm not a city administrator. I think, Leah, you asked the question, were other towns consulted? Did we look at other type of review forms, performance reviews? So that was my question, really. I didn't hear the answer to that, though.
I was going to give a suggestion to maybe talk to Wendy.
We did.
About that for other
ran-
cities or other.
We ran this through Wendy.
Okay.
And then once we get our comments back, we are going to run it through the corporate council.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's important too, so that we don't do anything wrong. And then I think it would be good to maybe reach out and find out if there's, other communities that do that.
So Laura did give us a one that she got from an organization that she belongs to for other city administrators. We looked at some of those questions and it was, how would you describe it?
It was helpful, but I don't know if it was quite what we were. I don't think it aligned with what we were trying to accomplish with this. But I also, I talked to somebody who does a lot of consulting and work with a lot of municipalities in the area, just as a general question, like, do other towns do this? Just from my limited amount, most do, some do not. So it really is, I think, not uncommon in any organization to have some kind of formal process for this. And I think for this organization, it's a good idea. So yeah, I think it's just a preference of just however, or just, habits or how things have been done in different municipalities. So.
Were you able to, when you asked those different towns, were you able to find like an example of what it looked like to compare questions?
No, again, we just, we looked at a couple different examples and kind of worked, Jennifer mostly talked with Wendy to kind of get an idea of, what this could look like. So there's a lot out there. So, it could take, it would take a while to do that, I think, if we wanted to go through. So this is kind of just our starting point. So, and if we as a group should really decide what's important to us. Like, what do we want to know and what do we want to be able to recommend and comment on?
Yeah, I was just going to say that I very generally like what I'm seeing here, and I like the intent here. I think one thing, as we're sort of thinking of the use case and do we want this sort of thing or not, what it gives me the ability to do is kind of remember how I want the city administrator to work from year to year. So year one is going to be a little different. Year two, I'm going to be like, oh yeah, that's right. I was a little, concerned about effectiveness or whatever, right? And so I can look back and I can get a sense. So it's kind of as much instructional as it is directive, right? It sort of instructs us what to look for, to keep in mind. Are they managing the staff well? Are they being effective? Are they good communicators outside? So I like that a lot. And I do agree with Alderwoman Barraza that we should make it our own. I love that a lot. I was going somewhere with that and now it's gone. I'm sorry. It's gone. Memorial Day caught up with me.
I think one thing we need to remember is don't be afraid to set this up and then a year later come back and say, these three things just didn't make sense. We shouldn't be focused on that because that really doesn't further any of our goals or, help the relationship, whatever it is. Be willing to take that leap and see, does it really work? Does it change things that we think need to be changed? And does it bring up the situations or the questions that we really want answers to? And I think that's important that, it should be a living document. It should be something that we can change, that whatever the council makeup is at their direction or at their time when they're here and whatever our goals are, citywide and, what else, that we are able to adapt that to it, but have some structure that's there to be able to look back on and to look forward to be able to use year after year, not just kind of wing it and guess.
ask a wording question, and I'm so sorry, I meant to send this ahead of time.
Don't worry about it.
Effectively represents the department's mission, vision, and values. Department is used a lot throughout. Is that the administration department? Is that our department? Is that just city at whole? Effectively represents the city's mission, vision, and values. And it's used a couple of times, and it might be different in different applications. And so I just thought maybe clarifying.
I'd say it's for the city administrator, so it'd be the administration department.
And their specific
Yeah.
mission, vision, and values.
But is that one that we like? 'Cause I know this is like the version that we worked on, but I think when we met again, we made a different version where we changed some of the wording. Huh? Yeah, because I had the deck with one. I mean, some of it is just some of those changes because we talked about some of the wording and the verbiage and everything. So if department isn't sitting well with you, we can definitely change that. I mean,
It should be more specific. I agree, actually.
Yeah.
Now that you're saying it, yeah.
Because I think like in leadership, the department belongs
Yeah.
there. But then when you get down to, let's see, is it community and public relations represents the department's mission and vision. I think it should be the city's mission and vision there. Because that's really when you're,
one that we did change.
you know, to drop that department and make that the city's, because that's where, when it is public, that's part of the city's mission. But when it's internal as the department head, it should be the department.
I agree.
Do you think city could work in both those instances? You know, since the city administrator is sort of the head of all the departments, city could kind of work in both
It could, but I
contexts.
think in the first one, the leadership part, that stresses to me the department because of the policies that come out of administration.
We just say administration?
Administration policies.
Yeah.
So we would say deals with problems and complaints patiently and decisively following administration policies or administration department policies.
So are we working on leadership right now?
We're at number one, yeah, we're in category one. Like, probably it would be helpful if we just went through each one and people just gave some feedback, we took some
Yeah.
notes, and then we'll revise it and send it, or work with the version after that.
So some of, so the first one, the update that we made to that one was lead by example, create strong teamwork and public service focus. Because we took out, yeah.
And I don't think it's anything glaring that's there. It's just,
Just that part of what it's focusing on city or that internal department procedure.
So the one that has department ensures the department responds proactively, we actually changed that to keeps supervisor informed of trends and requirements. I look at some of this and I'm like, huh.
I'm really seeing, like everywhere I'm seeing department, I feel like city can fit in there. The question I'm kind of having, like, does the admin department have their own distinct policies? And sort of the role of the administrator is to enact our policies, which are kind of then the city policies. And we may be quibbling, you know, over something here, but department just doesn't feel right?
It doesn't.
It's too vague.
Yeah.
It's too vague.
Yeah.
I would just say city council, to help city council manage and comply with their budgets and here all here. I mean, really, because I have no insight into how Laura and her departments work
Yeah,
together
and-
at all.
We do want to keep this within the scope of what we can see, observe, our interactions. So, okay.
Yeah, I mean, let's just give it a wash and just, you know, just align it towards city council and the city administrator's relationship as opposed to departments.
and honestly, I think some of this that we're trying to get into here to measure with also helps define what our roles are in managing the manager. You know, I mean, that's something that we have to be okay with and that we have to understand, okay, this is where we get to go. We get to stay in this box and this lane, or do we just open that lane up and then have too much micromanagement? I mean, that's the other thing that I think we have to remember in this is we don't want to focus on this all the time. We want to be able to focus on all the other questions and all the other things we have to deal with.
I think the first and the last one under that category are still strong and still relevant to our view. Like watching her demonstrate teamwork and work ethic, and then assessing whether or not they are keeping up to date with current developments affecting the practice. I think those are super fair for us to chew on.
Yeah, I see in the weekly updates where she's like, oh, this person attended this conference or this development training. And that's where you pick some of the things that, the different nuggets that they give us information from.
So are we through the category 1?
So I replaced department with city.
Okay.
Anybody ever have any more feedback on leadership?
Category 2.
We need something along the lines of, enacting, we have voted budget in there, but as far as enacting city council priorities, I'm not really seeing that reflected in here other than just the voted budget. There are times where we amend the budget, where we sometimes approve things that are plus or minus on the budget. Does that go here? Or do we think that goes somewhere else, or am I off base?
I see effectively prioritizing competing demands as something like that.
And I think the next section, talking about strategic plan, is kind of where we've given maybe something calling out, prioritizing the directives in the strategic plan through the budgeting process, if we feel like things are getting missed in the budget.
Yeah, I guess what I feel like is missing is sort of the and again, apologize if it's somewhere else, but sort of faithfully implementing directives, right? There's a lot of sort of whoever it ends up being, will report back to us on what they've done. But I also want to see some sort of like faithfully implementing city council directives in there somewhere.
That would fall under policies and strategic plan.
Maybe implements governing body actions in accordance with the intent of council and in alignment with the strategic plan. Does that, you feel like that
catches it. That probably
covers
catches
it?
it.
Okay. Okay, then that would be in category 3, so I think that would cover that. Okay.
Yeah, I have another suggestion. So it's sort of similar to line item 2, but provides relevant financial long-term relevant financial analyses to decision-making points, like in the memos and the like. I think that would be a good.
But I don't think she completes those memos. That's memos completed by the staff.
That's a fair point.
But that is something, as I said, with some of the feedback, as I've said, that's something that maybe that kind of sticks with you, and you can be like, hey, maybe we'd like to see this very similar to the housing development. I know that there were some financial parts that I think that you presented that I think that we could have asked staff to say, can you please include this whenever we have a development plan, this type of financial analysis.
That's more fair. Okay.
I think that's great feedback to be able to give that. That way we're not pulling staff all over the place with sort of that. But it's staff that does most of the memos and everything like that.
Yeah, it's valid. How about that?
Let's just keep moving. All right, I think, okay, category 3, anything that or doesn't make sense? Going on to community and public relations, anything? We know that department should be city probably. City's mission, vision, and values through in-person, print, and electronic communication.
I think this is one that you changed because there was the strives, and I think you didn't like strives. And I think we changed it to understand and respond to community character.
I think we had too many versions of this, so this may not be, I think that was a change, because strives seemed a little bit.
But I think we landed on understands and responds to community character.
I like that.
You like that? Okay.
So just a question, the second point where it's effectively represents the city's mission, vision through in-person, print, and electronic communication. Is that just, are you, like, you're just talking about like how they represent the city in that department, like publicly? Is that what that portion is meant, or?
Person, print, and electronic. So yeah, it's her, whatever she's putting out in person and what we could see her doing.
So are they posting things on social media that we don't agree with, or like?
Yeah, that could fall
That's
under
what
that
I'm
category,
like.
absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
You know, and you just kind of went where I wanted to go. Does the city have a social media policy for stuff like that for employees?
I believe they do.
Do we?
Max is nodding vigorously. Lots of people over there nodding vigorously.
Yeah, we're in the process of pretty extensive HR policy revisions, and I do know part of that. I do know there is some social media policies and things like that.
Ironically, it's coming from me, but it seems like every week somebody's like getting dinged because they posted something dumb. Not necessarily not in Batavia, but somewhere, some other community.
And I think we changed this one. We took it because it was so wordy. Represents mission, vision, and values across communication. Instead of breaking it out into all of it, any sort of communication lines.
Yeah.
Or do you want to keep it into the different?
I mean, yeah, now I'm just getting in the weeds, but like that could be, is that communication directly to city council and staff, or is that to the broader public? Is that stuff there?
Like if you're thinking like the stuff that Lori sends out or the communication department sends out, I think that would kind of be.
I was thinking more individually. Like, and I don't think we currently have an issue with this with our current administrator. So I'm thinking like future, you know, we get an administrator in who has very public, loud opinions, you know. So I'm asking you guys, is that what you're intending with this question? Or do we even want something like that?
It specifies. And I think that probably is good because it could be the way that the person, that administrator is communicating to us or to the public or on social media. I don't know if you want to, I mean, because I don't know if we want to make it more specific. Go ahead.
I think we need to make it specific.
Okay.
I mean,
How so?
well, check out this. Like, there's no one sitting here, right? But I guarantee you, we could say something right now, which will generate 15 to 20 Facebook posts, right? So social media is a big part of how the people are
Is
interacting
that
with the
under
city.
electronic communication? Or do we want to?
I think you need to say social media. Yeah.
But I don't. Does the administrator put out social media posts?
This one doesn't.
Oh, this one doesn't.
Another one's good. Yeah.
They're responsible for it though, right? Because I kind of, that like, and Lori does report directly to her and sort of in the right ways. And so, I'm sorry, I'm jumping the line, but I view her role as managing our PR department. And I was hoping we could be a little more explicit, not just about sort of represents and understands, but also effectively executes public relations campaigns might be something to put in there. I'm sorry, I know I jumped the line, I apologize.
So is it effectively, instead of effectively represents, you want to do effectively executes a city mission, vision, and values through in-person, print?
Well, I think and I think I'm advocating for maybe just a whole new line that is sort of a different idea. So one is effectively represents, where like when they are on social media, they're not saying like, screw this, this, whatever, right? Causing a ruckus. That's what the effectively represents is. And then there's the other part, which is we want to get the word out about, safe bike riding. Can you effectively put together a campaign that's going to do that? Are you sort of media literate, or can you manage somebody who is in sort of an effective way? So.
Yeah, I'm glad you separated those two, because I do see them as separate, that I want something in there that lets us talk about when we see this person out in the community, out talking about city business, are they adequately representing the culture, the directives, and the policies here? Because that may or may not be true now or in the future, and I want some space to like be able to judge on that. And then separately, I agree, and maybe this kind of goes back up into the leadership section. Do we want to have a specific, based on our current strategic plan, based on our current set of staff, a separate goal for each department that she oversees, not just public relations? Because I don't want to just call out one department and ask for specifics on how she oversees communication and public relations if we're not going to do the same for concerns that might bubble up in all other departments too.
So, okay.
Clear as mud.
I'm just trying to think like, tell me the sentence.
Like what you have written if you add social media.
Okay.
In this area.
It effectively represents the city's mission, vision, and values through in-person, print, and electronic communication, including social media.
And I think that's a good place, again, to start at.
Yeah.
Because if we get through this once or twice and then say, okay, we need to add another line to it to really focus on what our directives were, what our mission is, and something different that needs to come out of it. But I think if we try to look for everything the first time here, we're going to be here all night trying to figure this out.
I was going to suggest splitting it into strong and consistent messaging control and effective and innovative use of all communication mediums. Would maybe be how I would word it if you are looking for a sentence.
Yeah, I like that thought, because what it does is can they put together sentences that make sense, and can they leverage existing media to kind of like get it out there? Can they go to the radio or
I think that helps split them up a little. Sorry.
I'm sorry.
We're
talking about a separate piece for just information dissemination.
Yeah.
Effectively.
One is method, the other is consistency and ability to deliver a message unrelated to the medium.
Right, and I think as I'm thinking through that, the concept I have is that if we hired somebody who only knows how to write newspaper articles and engage in sort of print media, well, that's not with the times, right? And who knows in the future, we want to be able to assess, do they accurately leverage AI chatbots or whatever the future technology is, right? So we want some sort of assessment there versus also just the like, are they reasonable and make good words happen?
Oral telepathy.
All right, so effectively represents the city mission, vision, and values through multiple media avenues?
We can leave it as in-person, print, and electronic communication, including social media.
Okay, electronic.
Under this section.
Under this section.
Yeah.
Okay.
More of that, maybe under leadership or management. Maybe it's not leadership, maybe it's
So
management.
remember, everything we add to this, you're going to have to go through and do once a year.
This would be a great retreat exercise, honestly. Just like every year, part of the retreat.
We got to start somewhere, Kevin.
I know.
We're doing
Right.
this.
It could.
Yeah.
And that's good because then it also forces you to do the retreat every year. Yep.
And then we could like refine this in the fall retreat. That way it's ready for February, March to put out.
Right, and that's probably what we would want to do. Yeah, I think that's probably a realistic.
That's the whole overall arching goal, is to kind of do this in like a February, March. give people a couple of weeks and then gather all the information. And that way, when we go and do the approval, we've done this, we've gone through this. So.
That actually brings up my earlier question about exec sesh. Is this being done in exec session?
I would believe it would be under personnel, that it should be an executive session.
And so then even, because somebody mentioned FOIA, but that impacts how FOIA-able it is, so.
In personnel, only in extreme cases, I think, then it becomes FOIA-able. And I don't know the actual Max.
Yeah, I was going to say, with regard to discussion, that would happen during executive session under personnel. With regarding FOIA, there are certain restrictions on personnel records that are both related to FOIA as well as, I believe, the Personnel Review Act or the Personnel Records Review Act. I'm not 100% sure where that falls out, but there are it's designed to be able to allow boards and staff to have performance discussions candidly is the intent behind the legislation.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure this is already on the list, but when we do go to council, our attorney with it, we're going to ask all those questions, I'm sure, right? Yeah, good.
To make sure that, one, we do it correctly, and, that we have that built into it. So we know what the expectations are, and then the public will also know what the expectations
I believe
are.
Chris did talk to the attorney, and he said it would be something in executive session.
Correct.
And we could have slides, right?
Yeah, executive session style.
Thank you. I just think that will help as we fill this out. And again, maybe that's not an issue right now, but in the future, as we're establishing this as an annual policy we're going to do, just for people to know that they can be candid or, so.
That's why we want to mix up the narratives so that nobody's like, I know who wrote that.
Yes.
Smart. At some point, again,
super shy.
unfortunately, one of us is going to have to do that.
I actually think we should be held
Are we
to
to
account.
category 5 reporting now? So we can get through that last one.
So then provides regular information and reports to the governing body, the council, concerning matters of importance, responds in a timely manner to requests from the council, takes initiative to provide information, advice, and recommendations to the council on matters that are non-routine and not administrative in nature, and reports produced by the city administrator or delegate are accurate, comprehensive, concise, and written to their intended audience.
The only comment I think I have there is on line 2, responds in a timely manner to requests from the governing body for special reports.
Oh, yeah.
Just reports or just period, just for the governing body, period, something like that.
So I got to bring some, I mean, this kind of goes back to, as a governing body, these requests should come through us as a governing body, as opposed to special reports, because if we've got everybody reaching out to the departments wanting different things, everybody's head is swiveling.
Well, and we do have, and this is a whole nother discussion, so I don't want to get too into it, but we do have a procedure for that, like where you have to have like 3 people that want to bring something up or discuss it, so.
So I would say requests from city council for special reports.
I'm actually more, I think you're right. I think that intent, from the governing body or from city council, it's the special, the word special, that like, if there's enough, it doesn't matter if it's special or not, right? If we ask for it, you should give it, right?
Maybe it's a run of the mill, it doesn't have to be special. Okay, just for reports.
And again, that's maybe quibbly, but for information.
Well, I think
Did
it
we
also.
say reports or, for reports or information?
I think information really makes
Captures
more
it all.
sense.
Kind of duplicating the next one a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, that
And
one's
probably-
about taking an initiative, right? And this one is about responding to requests.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Preempt our
kind of more-
requests.
What's that?
That one is asking how well she preempts our requests.
Yes. Can you read our minds?
Please read our mind and tell
When
us
you
what we
can't
need
read
to
our
know.
minds, do you respond? When you do read our minds,
Yes, okay.
For number 5 reporting, one thing that I've noticed since I've been in this role for a year, I'm used to having a backlog of like, hey, this issue, we talked about it 3 months ago, here's where we're currently at now on this, right? I think that falls into reporting. So for instance, the contractor registration thing, right? And we talked about that pretty extensively, right? Where is it? Right? I mean, like where are we at the topic, right? We had the dam go on, still going on. It's been 26 years and checking, right? So, and I think part of this is, there's no backlog. It says, well, we're not going to do this until we do this, right? So it'd be great to, in this language here, just, acknowledge that we need to acknowledge aged issues that are still out there, right? And that's part of reporting. So that whole concept of we're not going to introduce anything new unless we clear out what we haven't completed yet, right? Just some sense of prioritization and the backlog. We don't need to solve that tonight, but that'd be good to get in there.
But I think that's more of a function from the administrator that we don't really manage. And sometimes we have competing things that we may have come up where we're like, it's going to take precedence over other things.
Right, and I think that's the art and nuance of us being elected folks and the administrator being a professional, that if we want that accountability, that's the direction we give at the time, as opposed to sort of a standing general, like, here's your performance, right?
Right.
So I think that's a way of saying, like, if that's something we think is deficient and we want corrected, we report it in here, as opposed to it being a grading criteria. Right?
Yeah, as a recommendation, yeah.
The goals on the last page, that could be something, and if enough of us put it in there, then we discuss and we put it in her list of things that we will then evaluate her on next year. And maybe that is a whole section in the future years is, here's the goals we came up with for this year that we want you to work on. And that'll be custom every single year, and it falls at the bottom of this document.
Isn't the strategic plan her goal? Like, I guess I'm just thinking about like the school board, right? Like they have their strategic plan, and the superintendent is measured on the goals for the strategic plan. So isn't our strategic plan kind of the city administrator's like report card and how she's done?
I see that as one of the tools.
Oh,
yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead. It's definitely the reference point of what we're looking at. And I think the idea behind this was to measure how we're working together in the progression toward those goals. But those are the goals. But this is kind of more of the process. That's kind of the what, and this is kind of the how, and how we're working together and functioning, as opposed to establishing like what is already in a strategic plan. We're not developing new goals for the city in that sense. I think we're looking at, here we have this set of goals. How well are we as an administration and a council working together to make progress on those goals? So I think that was kind of more what we were thinking for this.
I guess I was asking that because in that section, category 3, policies and strategic plan, I think my head was kind of thinking to list the main goals for the plan, because each goal has sub goals. It's pretty long, but I thought like the main categories, maybe we could just list them. I don't know, it just helped me. I don't know if it helps you, but when you're giving somebody performance review, it can help a point of reference for the goals. Just a suggestion.
How often, Max, is the dashboard online updated for the strategic plan goals?
Those are updated primarily at the department level, and most of us have automatic updates sent, so we tend to put in updates as we have things to report. So some things are updated more frequently. Some things haven't been updated in a while because there's not movement on them. But if you ever have any questions about a specific item, do ask us. But those reports come in kind of on an automatic schedule, depending on what they are. Some are set up for quarterly reports. Some are set up for annual, just kind of depend on what they are.
In my head, I was thinking like, I will definitely review that dashboard before doing this, and I think everybody probably reprioritizes the strategic plan in our own heads too. Like we have things that we want to see done that probably don't align with what everyone, and to the question about having kind of a specific question about each department and how well it's achieving its goals and how well, I don't know how to do that.
Well, you guys mentioned narratives, right? Earlier, you were talking about, well, the explanation will be in the narrative. And I guess when I'm thinking about the categories, there could be narratives next to those categories, depending on how we view it. We all have different perspectives, as you mentioned.
That would be, if we went through this, I think that would be to adding additional verbiage in the quantitative categories. Does that make sense? Like, I think we'll kind of see that on our first run through and then do another revision based on how it works for us. And if we see that kind of, okay, we have way too much or not way too much, but we have a lot of similarities in the specificity and category that we're seeing in the narratives from people, that probably needs to be added back in another way. That's kind of how I was seeing it. So, more specifically worded related to the strategic plan.
Is there anything else in category 5 that needs any work? I think the last point there is going to be more and more important as AI delves into daily work. That stuff gets proofread and that stuff gets, read aloud so you understand what it's actually going to do before you send it. I find that daily that just shocks me. Anything else, or are we good to that point?
Oh, go ahead.
Just a technicality, I would say on our discussion at the very beginning about the rating scale, I would suggest adding in a 0 that does not count against the rest of the data. Sorry, just thinking about this mathematically. Because if you say, hey, I don't have any data to report on that, I don't feel comfortable, or I don't know enough about that, that shouldn't be a negative.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, how specific do you want to be on the goals? And how are you going to roll those up as a group? If we each kick in 3 goals, suddenly our city administrator has 50 goals she needs to work on. Oh my gosh, Right. So I guess my question revolves more around, how deep do you want to go down that rabbit hole? Do you want Jim and I to take it at a corporate level and say, here's 3 SMART goals that are actionable and here's the timeline, et cetera? Or do you want higher level? And then as a group, we kind of have to narrow that down.
I think to help us stay focused, to kind of keep it with the strategic plan, if there's something with that, because there may be like something that's not even on the strategic plan, and to help us move forward, we've all contributed to the strategic plan. So if you're able to connect that.
And I hate to say this again, but I think that's going to be one of those things. We don't, as a council, want to say, here's a laundry list of stuff. That doesn't make any sense. And the strategic plan pretty much lays out what the goals for the city are and what we're all working toward. I think if we had suggestions for goals, they might, and I think we just have to do this and look at it and just see, like, okay, this is a hot mess. This way of doing this is not going to work. We're going to have to refine this part of the tool and make it so that it comes up with something useful and functional. So I think when I'm thinking of recommended goals, I'm thinking more of functional things like, okay, if we're requesting information, it would be really great if it was a little more timely, or if we're, kind of more based on that kind of working relationship piece, how is the administration and the city council working together as effectively as possible to push forward those goals that are in the strategic plan?
And instead of 50 different things from 14 people, the top 3 things
or maybe
that came out of it that we can agree on and put those down as the goals.
Yeah.
And maybe if I can toss a suggestion out there is, this is the first time we're doing this, so maybe before we do the executive session with Laura, we do an executive session of the results. And then that way we can kind of gradually say, here are the goals that came out here, and are we good with this, or do we want, I'm just putting it out as a suggestion, but,
Oh, I think so. I think it's going to need to do it, and then we're going to have a discussion about, is this what I don't think we can just present like a first run raw data to anybody and have it be useful or make sense or a good use of anyone's time.
Yeah, I think I agree with all that. Kind of where I was originally getting hung up on in this discussion help was kind of that word goal, because we of course can like by law make them do things, right? We can just pass an ordinance. So our goal should certainly not be sort of that type of thing, like have a,
or suggestions.
do this or whatever. Right, it needs to be more aligned towards here are ways you can help us or we can help you, right? More ways you can help us might be the framing, and goal is the word that I'm getting hung up on, but that conversation helps. I don't know a better word or a better way to frame it. And the actual sausage part of it is that executive session where we all sit around here and we kind of argue about it, and one of us might have a really strong opinion about some of it that the rest of us don't. And we need to kind of have the wherewithal within the room to have that kind of fight and then resolve it either through a vote or consensus or whatever. So I think that's how the sausage actually gets made into those 1, 2, 3 list.
So any suggestion on what word to use instead of goal?
I've been kind of sitting here trying
Opportunity.
to think of that. Outcome?
Growth outcomes. That's education language. Yeah, that's
I know,
teachers have to
right.
have student growth outcomes.
2 to 3 suggestions.
Outcome. I do like outcome, but I don't know.
Objectives.
Yeah, let's think about it. I don't know. We don't have to come up with it right this second, but we know that that's a point we want to spend some time thinking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Process suggestions.
I'm okay with goals.
Suggestions.
Okay, are we done?
Yeah, I think I took notes.
Okay.
Does everybody want me to send this out, or again, just to review it one last time? And then I'll give everybody like a week. Because we do want to run it past corporate council.
Right.
And then I think then we're going to run with it. For everything, so.
And are we going to adopt it as a policy, not do a resolution or anything like that, just adopt it as a policy?
Question for
Probably,
council.
well, I was going to say, and that might be something that you have to have Kevin answer.
You don't have to.
All right, let's move on then to.
Everyone.
Thank you. And thank you for the work you guys put in before this. To 6.5, which is a discussion on limits on tobacco and liquor licensing.
I'll just throw in expectations. It might be a thing for the objectives, whatever. Yes, this is something that we had a couple of older folks bring up as something that they wanted to discuss after we had a couple of liquor stores open up recently, and we just wanted to put this on the agenda to talk about it and see if there's any desire to make any changes either through regulatory end of things by zoning, or whether they wanted to put some type of limitations or what have you on the licensing end of things. We have right now 21 tobacco licenses. Tobacco licenses right now, and then we have 20 liquor licenses that are for packaged liquor type facilities. And the most recent one is the one on East Wilson Street. So, but we don't have a recommendation. We just wanted to put this on the agenda to see if there's any desire to, start creating any limitations or anything. Just as a little history, years ago, the city for liquor licenses, for example, didn't allow liquor licenses in gas stations and a lot of different types of facilities. Or if we did, there were some square footage requirements that were pretty arcane and hard to manage because of this you could only have a liquor sales in a store that had X square feet, but then it was only a percentage of the square foot of the total, what have you. Generally, gas stations were not allowed to have liquor sales, so that's the way it was done years ago, and then we opened it up some time ago, but I just didn't know if you wish to create additional restrictions or what have you in that regard. So I leave it to you to discuss.
Raza?
Okay, so, and correct me if I'm wrong here. So I don't particularly feel that we need any additional restrictions on this. However, it does seem like this came from the perception that the vape and liquor store on East Wilson was kind of a bait and switch. And I think that's what brought this kind of to the public's attention, that this was supposed to be a convenience store, and then it's, you know, bright lights, vape and liquor, and that was not quite, that honestly wasn't what I thought was happening when we approved it. So that seems to be more the issue, is the being able to vet these proposed stores and places of sale properly, and having some kind of accountability to what they presented as to what actually happens. That would seem there like there was some kind of hole there. I don't know if it necessarily would require us to have additional restrictions on the type of, or the number of liquor and tobacco licenses. That didn't really seem to be a or that wasn't one of my top concerns. It was more that, yeah.
Yeah, I have no concerns about trying to limit or doing that. I think everything that we have currently in place in terms of the regulations, the vetting, all of that is perfectly appropriate. And I agree with Alderperson Barraza about that one thing, but the thing is you can't tell a business what they have to do, what kind of business they have to have. And as long as they pass everything in terms of the background and everything else that goes into being granted a liquor license, who's to say that, you know, we have to tell the business, you have to have hot dogs in there, and we'd like gallons of milk as well. I mean, that's just not the way it works. So I do agree, though, that what we were told about that place is not what it turned out to be. But that doesn't mean that they weren't properly vetted for the license and they didn't go through all the proper regulations. And so, you know, it is what it is in that regard. I feel that everything that we have in place for licensing and the way it goes, the way it works is perfectly appropriate. And it's just unfortunate that they decided they were going to have a different kind of business than they actually came down and represented, because it led to certain expectations. But otherwise, I don't see any need to do any types of limits like this memo discussed.
I just want to mention also, I do have a comment, but Max also has his hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly say that part of the issue with liquor licenses and tobacco licenses are our ability to deny them for, at times, nebulous reasons can put us into a bit of an issue with legal status. However, when you put in things like a cap, you basically give yourself blanket permissions to say, well, we're just choosing not to raise the cap. You can always raise the cap, allow a business to come in, but without a cap, if it's permitted by zoning code, permitted by building code, permitted by liquor code, our ability to kind of just blanket deny, it can get a little bit hairy. We still probably retain that authority, but it's an issue that could come up. And so a lot of cities do have caps or things like that, because it's a really kind of easy way to say, we're just not interested in raising the cap right now. And it doesn't get into the merits of a business or anything like that. And you're saying, well, we're just not raising a cap. So that's part of why this discussion came up, is because even though it may have been a different business model, our ability to deny that business model is limited as well, because it's a permitted use within that area.
If I could jump onto that most towns that I've worked in have had limits, and when every time somebody comes in, you know, you have X number of liquor licenses for each type, and then somebody comes in, say, I want to have that, and then you say, okay, we're going to change the ordinance to raise it from 4 to 5. And then when they close, or when someone closes, you pass an ordinance to go from 5 to 4. So.
My perspective on this is that our job, we have the unique responsibility to kind of determine what our town looks like and what our downtown looks like. And every municipality is a little bit different in what they want it to look like, what they want the vibe to be. And that doesn't mean necessarily that we are against that thing. It's just saying we are curating our downtown or our area to be a certain way. And it might be we don't want liquor stores on every block. And so we're going to put a cap so we can help control that. Again, that doesn't mean we're not going to drink alcohol or shop at these places. It's just saying, this is what we want our downtown to look like. I'll say, like, the boardwalk shops do that. They curate what the boardwalk shops are going to look like, and they're going to say, we're not going to have 5 different candle stores at the boardwalk shops. We love candles. We don't need 5 different candle shops. And so we're going to only have one that's not competing against all the other ones. So I think having the ability to say no, or not at this time, or that's not what we want on this block, should be something we discuss, because without having a cap or the ability to say no, I think we leave ourselves open to just any business coming in and doing whatever they want without us helping to determine what we want our town to be like. And that's going to change with other councils. I understand that. In another 8 years, it might be a different council that is determining that they want Batavia to look a different way or behave a different way. But for right now, this is our responsibility.
I just wanted to follow up. Regarding the specific store that we've all been discussing, didn't that liquor license actually have a specification on how much of their business could be specifically liquor, and that's kind of what triggered this? I seem to recall that being the case.
They did indicate convenience store, which is not necessarily the most defined term. They still likely meet that. We did have a conversation to try to mix up their product mix, and I do think they have made some improvements. I haven't been back in a while. But yes, there are definitions in there, but it's all under a Class B package license. So it doesn't necessarily, it's more for how we determine pricing and things like that. It doesn't really have a determination on what they can do. For example, there's no difference between the liquor code for a what we would call like a liquor store. It would be packaged liquor, no gas, and a convenience store. They're allowed the same exact activities, the same functions, the same benefits, and all of that. We just sometimes charge different prices for different types of businesses. One of the things we did do with the liquor code rewrite is we doubled the price of packaged liquor to make it more comparable with other communities. That was to try in some ways to just deter a proliferation of just packaged liquor stores. But we kept pour licenses, so the restaurants and bars the same. So I hope that answered some of the things.
Okay, that is a clarification.
Alderman Fehrenbach.
I guess a couple of things. So first off, we're just about built out. We have 200 acres left. I know a lot of our conversations we have tend to be theoretical, like we're going to be 2 million people. We're going to probably top out at 30,000 if we're lucky, right? So things are what they are, and it'll probably be that way for a very long time, right? Nationally, alcohol consumption is dropping dramatically. I know my children don't drink as much as I did back then, and thank God for that, right? And thirdly, it seems like we just lack an offset. I mean, it is kind of gross down going to Wilson, seeing like 3 liquor stores all right in 2 blocks. I mean, how does that happen, right? I've lived in those neighborhoods in the city. It's not good. I mean, it attracts a lot of elements you don't necessarily want concentrated, right? So I think my take would be, if a cap is too strong for people to digest, there's no reason why you can't have an offset for packaged liquor sales, right?
I'm sorry, offset.
Meaning 2 liquor stores can't be within.
You could have a setback, yeah. I mean, you could create a setback of sorts, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean.
And you could do that either through the licensing or you could do it through zoning.
That seems totally reasonable from my perspective.
Yeah. Is the setback on the ground similar to the cap, or is it lower? Sorry, I'm going to be rude.
It's probably easier to enforce through zoning than it is through the licensing, just because it's,
I would likely agree. I would likely agree with that. I want to add this briefly. Courts have ruled pretty consistently that there is a property right vested in a license, either tobacco or liquor license. So that's part of why you get on iffy grounds. It's like, well, my zoning's approved there. My business is approved here. I've met all the criteria for a liquor license. I now have a property right to obtain it if there's no other reason. So that's part of the discussion. That's why towns, a lot of towns do have setbacks, only a certain number of establishments based on zoning district and other things. in reviewing I probably reviewed 10 different cities' liquor codes and writing the current liquor code. Most of them had either caps, setbacks, license type limits, for the reason I shared earlier, is that it does give you kind of a blanket, not at this time, and you're on very solid legal footing with that, generally speaking.
Long?
I believe Alderwoman Wellman was waiting for a minute.
Wait,
I could
a little bit.
Defer my.
So my thoughts on this, it got me thinking, and I was looking into our Tri-City towns, and I can just confirm what Max was saying, that I was really surprised that all the towns I looked up had caps or setbacks. And so I am interested in continuing this conversation. I think that along with Alderperson Lehman's comments of us as council being able to have a say in what our town looks like, we want this to be community-centered, be in line with our strategic plan. So to me, I don't see this as a negative. I think this is a positive. We have a stronger voice in approving these licenses. And as was mentioned earlier by staff, if we are at our cap and we want to increase it, we can. We do have that ability. So I really think that this is a positive. It just helps us have more control on what businesses, what we want our town to look like, right, in different areas.
Yeah, similar thoughts there. First on is it our role to do? I think it's pretty clearly our role. We do that with racetracks. We do that with industrial sludge plants. We can do it with other stuff. So the argument that it's not our role doesn't hold much water. We do it with all sorts of stuff. And so then the question becomes, is it the right thing to do? From my perspective, I do like the idea of having some control and say in what our vibe downtown is. For me, it's about the downtown. So I like the idea of setbacks, and I particularly like them applying to the downtown area, right? If we have a couple liquor stores kind of out on Randall Road next to each other, that impact isn't quite the same to me as it is in the downtown area, where we're attempting to foster, at least in my perspective, I think what I've heard from folks is trying to foster more of a social setting, more of a setting where you go, you're going to go to a restaurant and have a drink. You're going to go to a comedy show. You're going to go listen to music. And packaged liquor stores don't generally fill that in. So if we have one or two, that's fine. Have 8 or 12, well, now we're kind of crowding out businesses that would foster the vibe that we would like to see downtown. So I think setbacks can achieve that. Having the cap that we can raise and lower is intriguing because it gives, I'm going to just say it bluntly, which may be not politically wise, but it kind of gives us power, right? It's a little bit of a power grab for the council, which is enticing as somebody on council, but I could see how as a business owner that might be frustrating and tough. But that, in the right hands, that power can be productive. So I do see this as kind of a value add in that capacity. So I think we can do it. I think there is an incentive to do it, but I also recognize that we do want to give businesses freedom and ability to do with their property as they see fit. So I think there's a fine line to walk here, which is why for me, the downtown area is the part that I'm thinking about. And it sounds like through zoning, we could apply certain restrictions to the downtown mixed use that wouldn't necessarily apply to the, say, commercial Randall Road or Kirk Road.
You could do that. You could say, we don't really classify liquor stores right now in the zoning code. It's just considered retail. But we could create a classification for, packaged liquor and say that, there's a setback of X feet from another packaged liquor store. So you could do that through zoning, certainly.
I believe, if I recall, that there was some type of a memo sent out or some type of a summary showing the comparison of the amount of stores in our town versus all the adjoining towns. And we are actually maybe less, and they're in terms of like distance apart or however it was. But there was something showing that we are in no way any different than any of the other towns around us. And I think the point was made that we're already pretty much maxed out on our population. So let's think about the business model here. Do you really think that we're going to just have an influx of liquor stores? Because it's not a viable business model then. So we're maxed out on population. We're kind of maxed out on a viable business option being another liquor store, for instance, over here, or down the street here. I mean, that's why I think that, we want businesses in the town. I just think that right now, the way everything is set up, that we're okay with the way it's done right now.
Raza?
I have a question and a comment. I do like the idea of setbacks within the downtown area. I think that might be something useful as far as just having that level of control over what kind of businesses are operating there. But so if we went with a cap and say a proposed liquor store came in and it was really just not quite the kind of liquor store that we want, or, liquor establishment that we wanted, but they met all the legal requirements and we said, oh no, it doesn't meet the cap. And then next week, like some really cute, cool store comes in and they also met all the legal requirements and we're like, oh yeah, we'll raise the cap for you. Like, does that put us at any point of liability if they both had legally equal applications?
Generally speaking, again, not a lawyer. Generally speaking, though, you put an ordinance in to put a cap if you did that.
Mm-hmm.
That whatever, you can specify within there. If you wanted to put specific considerations of when we would raise it or lower it, you could probably advise not to.
Yeah.
But it's generally viewed as just a pure discretionary decision of the city council. It's kind of your prerogative. Whereas the liquor license itself is through the liquor commissioner, which is legally the mayor. Now it requires the approval of council, but the council is probably on stronger footing if you had that cap and chose to do that, deny one, approve the other. But if you didn't have a cap, denied one and approved the other, now you can see where some of the distinctions might happen, and legal can definitely chime in more as to the liability there. But that generally, when you have a cap, it's kind of we're just not going to raise it. Whatever the reasons are, they are.
And following up on that, in the communities I've worked in that did have caps, you also have to be careful. If you do decide you're going to have a cap, you have to undo the cap if somebody leaves, because otherwise you have a vacant license that anybody can jump in and get it. So you have to pass an ordinance to reduce the number pretty quickly after somebody closes.
I'm just curious, when we're talking about packaged liquor in our downtown area, how many do we have?
In downtown,
does that also include
total.
what Sturdy does? And
No, that's considered a bar, restaurant.
Okay.
So, no, it's
So
primarily
I'm
ones that
thinking four.
convenience stores, gas stations have packaged liquor. So, the Shell station, the 3 liquor stores on the east side.
I just looked at RNS, and RNS is not considered in the downtown mixed use.
No, they are a different zoning district, correct. Mm-hmm.
So I'm just curious on what we're looking. We're looking at 7-Eleven, the grocery
Cinco de
store,
Mayo,
has a package
Walgreens.
license.
taco, or not taco, but tobacco by the boardwalk shops, right? 7-Eleven
7-Eleven.
or Walgreens
Oh, yeah, Walgreens would have
and
one.
Shell.
Shell has one. Mm-hmm. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I think, downtown.
6-1.
I think 5, you're right.
I don't think they get, oh, sorry, I raised my hand. Sorry.
Not enough on the west side of town. I can say that.
But I had the same concern as Robin of, what happens, this week we're like, we don't like you, but then I have a friend that comes in, we're like, yeah, I'll get you a favor. So.
Vote it out. No.
I did. Sorry, I got distracted looking at the maps that Jennifer just brought up. And the same question about Sturdy and Bocaditos, who are selling packaged out of there.
Yeah,
That's separate.
that's part of their restaurant license, so.
I'll just throw in my support for setbacks or a cap, whichever way we want to go. And I would love to fine tune what people are feeling on which one. And I will settle for the downtown mixed use district as a compromise, because again, I feel the same way that out on Randall, out on Kirk Road, separate from our downtown, where we passed a downtown development plan unanimously that calls for vibrancy and placemaking and creating an identity. So I think that we should take very strongly our ability to create and foster an identity and curate, as Alderperson Lehman was talking about. I think that's well within our purview. I don't know, I would love to just take a straw poll or see which way we're going to go on this, because I feel like there's enough support to do something.
I have a question and a comment. My comment is, I think setbacks would make sense, because if that new liquor store had shown up on the west side of town in one of the quadrants that doesn't currently have a liquor store, I don't think anybody would have had a concern. It was because it came right where we already have multiple stores. So I think a setback might solve this problem in our downtown. My question is, I'm still trying to wrap my head why we can't say no to approving something if it's not what we think aligns with our strategic plan, when I feel like we've voted on other businesses coming to town, and we've gone back and forth, and we said, do we actually want this in our town? Is this what do we want this business coming to our town? We've had discussions, we voted on it. So I'm curious why we can do that with some things, but not others.
Well, a lot of that would be zoning. So, I mean, you have some discretion. So let's say you have it, a prohibited use, then obviously it's not allowed. If it's a conditional use, you can, it's not prohibited per se, but you can allow it with conditions. So you can say, okay, this has to be, maybe you have a combination of conditional use plus setbacks, and say, we allow for a conditional use here, but you also have to be set back from this other use. One of the other setbacks that's actually in place in our liquor code, I think still is 100 foot from a church. So that technically is a code requirement right now. It has to be, and there's ones that are closer because they're grandfathered, they're already existing. So that would be the way to regulate it, is if you're going to have a conditional use. But that doesn't mean you're going to be able to just outright prohibit it through the conditional use process. You have to look at it and say, okay, there's a specific reason we don't want it, because it's too close to a daycare or whatever the situation might be.
Yeah, we figured out how to work around those pretty good, so I don't think those count.
If I may, the permissions and ability to deny something are stronger with something like a conditional use than kind of a general approval. So with video gaming, which is our next subject, that's, I believe, a conditional use, Scott, correct?
Right.
So with that, I believe conditional use allows a bit more like moral views on different things than maybe just a pure approval does. Mm-hmm. So that's why for different things you have different authorities and abilities than with, again, permitted use. It's by right allowed. They've met all the conditions in the city code for liquor licenses, for zoning, and all of that. There's really not clean ground to deny that. Whereas with conditional use, you can be like, I don't think this should be permitted, and that's kind of some protection there.
There's certain standards you have to meet, findings and standards as part of a conditional use that have to be met as well. So it's, and that's gone through the plan commission process. Now, keep in mind, if you do make it a conditional use, it takes longer to get through the process. It can take 3 to 4 months because you have to go to plan commission and go through a public hearing and all that. So.
Alderman White.
I think Malone was ahead of me.
Okay, Malone.
Oh, thank you. I was looking to shift gears just a little bit here and talk about tobacco next.
Never mind.
Take back your time. Just sort of wondering, I kind of didn't fully grasp what was said here. Currently, it's either sort of a yes, like you have a tobacco license or you don't, and there's no granularity the way there is like in the liquor code. Is that
actually right? And that's how we handle them. It's
how that
you either get a license or you don't.
So. You either get a license or you don't. If you have a license, you can fill your shop up and sell the neon light.
We also don't regulate those differently from zoning. It's considered pure retail.
Just sort of straight up, if you have a retail spot and you're able to secure, who issues the tobacco license? Is that the mayor or is that the state or is that where does
police issue those? Correct.
Okay, so that comes through the police. The police then get to issue that. Does that ever, currently under the current system, does that ever come to council? Is that any sort of conditional use, any sort of, just so long as they're where they say they're going to be and it's allowed, it's a go?
I don't know what the restrictions are on licensing for that, so.
Do other communities have anything on the tobacco side, any sort of setbacks or similar type things we're talking about with the liquor side that we're aware of? Or what's a model that we might be able to
I've
look
not done
at?
any research on it. I am sure that there are communities that do restrict them. And maybe they do it through the the tobacco licensing process, or maybe they do it through the zoning end of things. I'm sure there are communities, but I have not done any research on it, so.
I would just personally be interested in sort of the tobacco sales mirroring the liquor sales, you know, or some close approximation, just with tobacco's kind of taken a weird turn. Like it's sort of no longer just kind of buying a cigarette when you're driving, you know, to town. Not that that was good. You shouldn't have done that to begin with. But now with the vape products, the berry flavors, it's kind of a different beast these days. And especially with the conversations we had about Kratom and Delta 9s and 8s and 12s and 13s and whatever, it kind of feels like we might want to think about what the tobacco licensing looks like. I don't know what that looks like, so I guess I would turn to folks to kind of get some ideas on what it might look like. But
Didn't we have an ordinance that the police department worked with Cheryl Cryer on?
Yeah, that was the CBD and Delta 9 and Kratom
Right,
and all that stuff.
and that's with some of the flavored stuff and vaping and
I don't believe that created any sort of
That's
licensing.
different than the tobacco end of it, so.
Yeah, that didn't touch on tobacco really. It was hemp-derived products, not tobacco-derived products.
Quick statement and then a question that tacks directly on top of that. So my straw poll, I would say I like the setbacks in the downtown area, but I do like the overall cap because, Mr. Malone, I'll throw it at you. I don't want 23 in a row down Randall Road or down Kirk Road. I think that gives just as bad of a look as 10 downtown. It could be just as bad. My question to staff, though, that are here, how is cannabis also related to this?
Cannabis is regulated totally differently because it's primarily regulated by the state and their setbacks and their requirements, but it also requires a conditional use. And then we also have our own setback requirements that come into play with individual, whether it's an infuser or a cannabis, retail sales. We handle them a little bit differently in the zoning code. So primarily from our standpoint, we take the state's code and then we have our zoning code that layers on top of that.
I would be in favor of, if we're going to do setbacks already on the cannabis side, I also think a cap on that would make a lot of sense to a lot of our constituents as well.
Cap on cannabis?
On the number of locations, yeah.
Okay, because we had a lot of discussion about that when we created that, and there was discussion on whether we wanted to cap it, and at that time, the council didn't find that they wanted to cap it.
One of the things that came up.
It does require conditional use.
When we did that is if you draw the circles around the schools, the other things that prohibit it, there's very few places, one, like an infuser really has no other place to go other than out in the industrial park. Right.
Yeah,
There
right
really
now
is
on
no
Rand-
other location in town that they have available with all those circles drawn.
Right now on Randall Road with those setbacks, there's only 2 locations that they can go. We have the one existing one, and then there may be one going on north part of Randall Road, and then Randall will be done.
Right.
That's all you'd be able to get.
And there won't be room for any more. So I don't know that we have to have a cap on it.
Just as we were getting into these discussions, though, to me, we were talking about things, liquor, tobacco, the cannabis should be in there, and then we're going right into video gaming. It was like, hey, let's just line all these dominoes right up and try to blanket something here. But I understand the challenges of that.
Yeah, I'm been pleased to hear this conversation tonight, but I want to suggest that we probably should wait another 6 months to a year to have another conversation about this, because there's some big things about to happen. And they're not happening in Batavia, but they're happening right on our doorstep. And the big one is down at Kirk Road and I-88 with the new casino that's being built down there. Mayor of Aurora told me they're going to increase the number of machines in there, some thousands of number. I mean, it's going to be a huge area with machines. And then they're going to have the actual gaming operations on the tables and everything else. And what has happened is that the state of Illinois in the last 5 years has encouraged all the gaming facilities to move to the entrance of a freeway or a toll road. Joliet's 2 were moved, so they're right downtown Joliet, right on 80 and 55. You can see one from the other, but they're both there together. Rockford just built their first one. It's out on the west side of town, right at the I-90 interchange in Rockford. And the one in Aurora was moved so that it was moved out of downtown and put at the toll road. And the toll road was the big condition for it. Now, I was part of a conversation down there with some other folks, and Aurora indicated that everybody that I've just talked about had the same idea in their head, and there seems to be numbers behind it. That one of the greatest gambling constituencies we have in Illinois, Wisconsin, is the farmers. And the farmers go out and they plant their corn, and then they have to wait 3 or 4 months or whatever it is for it to grow. So they're looking for something to do. So during those times, there's huge numbers of folks come from the farming communities all the way to Mississippi River, up north, up into Wisconsin. They all come and want to do gambling. So that's one thing that's focused in. But in Aurora, they like the location because, number one, it's at the toll road. But secondly, it's right to the immediate south of Batavia, Geneva, and St. Charles. And the perceptions is that the spending power and the buying power and the people with some money are probably more north of that location than they are in the Aurora area, and they want to make it very convenient for people to get there and be able to spend their money and do whatever they're going to do. So I'm not sure that what we're seeing down there now, which is a 7-8-story building and everything else, that they're talking about maybe building some more down there beyond that, because they think this is going to be a very popular location for gaming to take place. And I think that Batavia needs to keep its oars in the water just to see what's going on, because, you know, I guess at the end of the day, it's a revenue thing, and we probably are going to have the chance to get a certain amount of good revenue out of those, specifically on the east side, down there near where Aurora and Batavia come together. Now, if you maybe know, Aurora's city limits come north of Butterfield to that first shopping center that's there, and then it switches over to Batavia. We've got 18 acres right in front of the 200 and, you know the number.
242. Prairie Commons, 242
what is
townhomes.
it?
242.
242 attached townhomes that have all been built and occupied. But we got 18 acres right in front of that that's vacant land, and that's been zoned by this city government as retail. So something very much could happen there. And you jump out on Randall Road and people, oh, gee, it's kind of done here. Well, it's done, but it's not done, because I signed a pre-annexation agreement with Mooseheart, in which they were given the ability to put 40 acres of commercial at the corner of Main Street and Randall Road on, it would be the southeast corner, right beyond where the fire station and the Covenant Church are. And then we also gave them permission to build an 830-unit age-restricted living community for senior citizens. And my conversations with Mooseheart, they're still feeling that one out, and they think that someday that one may come. So we could have some people with some pretty good buying power and all those things I just talked about. So I would encourage the city of Batavia, because, you know, the revenue stream is what really keeps this place going. We're able to buy new stuff. We're able to employ good people. And we're not in here crying to you about we need to raise the budget or anything else, because we've got new revenues coming in. And that's what Batavia needs to do. That's why I would really encourage us. Good discussion tonight. I'm glad we all had it, and I'm glad you were all here to hear it. But I think 6 months, a year from now, it's going to be a more intensified conversation as we see what are some of the impacts that are coming from the tollways on both the east and the west sides of the river.
Kevin, just so you're aware, there's a Senate Bill 3148 called the flavored tobacco ban that is currently in committee right now. So it's at a state level that would ban those. So.
Good news. There's a lot of, thank you for that information. There's a lot of ways they target kids, but I think that's a lot of steps being taken. Thank you.
On paper.
This is a bit of a divergence regarding liquor and tobacco shops, but it kind of goes into the idea of consistency across all of these. Would there be interest in maybe a restriction on the type of signage that you see in these shops, similar to what we passed for the video gambling a year or two back? Because I think that also contributed a lot to a lot of the consternation with this most recent shop opening. There's quite a lot of lighted signage that I think definitely inspired a lot of ire, and that might help reduce, again, some of the concerns that folks have had, if anybody would be interested in that.
Yeah, just to directly answer that, I'd be interested in that in particular with sort of vape shops and tobacco shops. I think sort of the neon lights and the neon signage and the flags that are out. I'm thinking of one shop in particular near Target, which I'm sure is a fine vape shop, but it's the neon lights are like blinding, like bright white LEDs going out there. So I would be interested in sort of seeing what our capacities are to control signage on that.
We do have signage regulations in regards to amount of window coverage as well as lighted displays. Technically, the only lighted display, I believe, is an open sign is allowed for that.
We allow, I believe, a 6 square foot illuminated sign. So whether it's an open sign or if it was like a liquor store, very limited. The banded lights around the windows are not allowed. So if you see those, let staff know. Sometimes we're not here during off hours, so we're on, our code enforcement officers or myself are not able to see those. But we do have restrictions on signage. Last year, we worked with several property owners to reduce signage, especially temporary signage that's out, window clings. The police department had raised concerns over visibility for both liquor stores and vape shops, so we have been working with those entities on making sure that visibility is maintained.
Just a time check. It's 9 p.m. We still have gambling to talk about and the remaining city business. Do we want to continue this conversation in next COW, or do you want to call it to an ordinance, or ask for an ordinance, or what?
I think we ask for an ordinance.
An ordinance to do what?
I feel like setbacks, I don't know. I heard a little bit, I took notes on what people were saying, and I hear a split between setbacks and or caps. So
you can come back and, propose some, options for you to consider, setbacks as well as, limits. We can put together,
What I think I heard tonight was two things: caps or setbacks, or a combination.
Right.
Are probably the easiest and enforceable with the least, problems.
And was there consensus on focusing primarily on the downtown mixed-use zoning or citywide? And just to be clear, are we just talking about packaged license caps and not really getting into either special events or pour licenses for bars, restaurants, et cetera?
yes to package and
Citywide.
Got it. Thank you.
I will say I find it ironic that one of the next things we're going to talk about in the next week or two is Adora for downtown. We're talking about restricting package licensing, and then we're going to talk about letting anybody walk anywhere they want downtown, which...
That's so different. It's very different.
I understand it's different, but to me, the underlying thing of we're trying to clean up our downtown and make it, more of a place, but yet we don't want to allow the package sales of it, but we want you to come down and go to every bar and every restaurant that serves alcohol down here, and then be able to walk across the street with it and go somewhere else. That's just my 2 cents on it.
Outdoor gambling.
Fair assessment. Want you to come down and be in our downtown.
Mm-hmm.
We want you to gather in community in our downtown. We want you to come and shop in our downtown. And the best way to have a vibrant retail space is to have a density and a diversity of retail establishments. So I think when we're talking about limits, we are talking about promoting a diversity of uses, and not just like, we're trying to clean it up and get rid of a vice. We're really not saying that. We're just trying to get a diversity of options for our residents to have a reason to daisy chain. I'm going to walk and I'm going to get my bottle of wine, and then I'm going to walk and I'm going to grab that gift card I need to get. I'm going to walk and do some little shopping and get some cheese to go with my wine. Like, that's what we're trying to establish.
I'm totally for
The
that.
whole time. I'm just kidding. Go buy more.
Well, I'll come back with some options for you to consider, and we'll talk about it again. Thank you.
All right. And we will move on to 6.6, which is discussion on potential changes to the city's video gaming regulations.
Yeah, so obviously there's a lot of kind of common concepts between the two memos tonight, but we did want to bring the gaming discussion back. There was, especially with our last application, a number of items raised by both the Plan Commission and then I think through the discussion at the council level about some of our regulatory approaches and whether we maybe want to look at some other options. So that's where we did try and tee up this memo in a way to kind of just ask kind of a series of questions more about taking another look at our reviews of our regulations more so rather than looking at whether the concept of gaming is something that we want to discuss again. Chief Flowers did provide some additional feedback about some of the concerns that come up from the police side of things with gaming. So that was also attached to the report. But similar to the discussion with the liquor code and whether the first question we floated was whether the city council wants to look at having a cap on the number of gaming licenses within community. Right now we don't have any cap. And that was part of the discussion was, are we having too many in the downtown area versus, citywide? We put within the memo, there's a couple of different ways, again, to do it, similar to the liquor discussion, but you could be by type of venue or type of licensee, by zoning district, or it could be a number citywide or some combination of those. So that was the first item we wanted to float, and then I did include the follow-up questions of if there was a desire to have a cap, where that cap could be set based on some of those criteria.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and jump in here. First off, from the last discussion, I was pretty miffed that the state down in Springfield was telling us where the place of worship was. That was really upsetting to me. We have firsthand knowledge that this place of worship was in a different spot than they believed it was, and so they erroneously awarded a gambling license because they weren't here. So one thing I want to find a way for us to do is to correct for mistakes made at the state level, right? They failed there because it is within the limit. They believed the services were on the other side. There's an older person sitting next to me who attested to personal knowledge that it was happening on the other side of the building from where they believed it was. That's upsetting, right? So that's kind of where I'm starting at from a place of skepticism as to the state's ability to know our town. So that's where I begin. Although from that, it actually, I am personally not opposed to video gambling. I think that it has a place in our town. I just don't think that place is downtown. We have our 8 establishments downtown, and they're fairly well spread out, not as spread out as I'd like them to be. So I would be in favor of something similar to what we just discussed, which would be setbacks, not having establishments within a certain range, and a fairly generous range, right? Again, I believe Alderwoman Beck made a very great point that what we want downtown is people to come down there, create a vibe, have your drink, eat your dinner, do your shopping, go see some music. Video gaming takes away from that in a lot of ways. If there's a few spots you can go to for the quick slot, that's fine. But if it's shop after shop after shop, I also believe that video gaming props up businesses that may not otherwise succeed in a part of our town where we do need kind of businesses that are striving and trying, right? So I think it's okay for a business to fail if they can't survive without video gambling. So what I'm looking for is kind of a downtown-focused approach. Setbacks make sense. Total licenses make sense too. I don't know which one of those is the better approach, or some combination, but that's very much what I'm kind of looking for. One of the questions in here is the repeat offender, or no, I'm sorry, the violations. And I just want to make sure sort of what, right now, if you have an open violation with the city of sort of any type, that doesn't have any impact on your ability to get a gaming license. And the question here is, if you haven't paid all your fees and fines to the city, you would be ineligible for a gaming license. Is that correct?
So that was the suggestion
okay.
of, that we could.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure I fully understood that, because that makes a lot of sense to me, right? Like, make sure you're
right
playing by the
now,
rules.
And Max maybe can clarify, I think right now there's not a specific limitation within the gaming portion.
Because having a gaming license requires you to have a liquor license, it's kind of a chicken and an egg type situation. But what we do is for liquor license renewals, if they're a new business, they obviously shouldn't have any debt with the city yet. But for renewals, we say you have to be current on your utility bills and current with all debts to the city. And that is incredibly effective at not just getting debts paid to the city, but also using it to compel additional action. So, the plaza over there, they made a lot of improvements and fixed a lot of code issues because we had provisions in there that said, if you have code issues, you may not be issued a license. If you have outstanding debts, you may not be issued a license. So that's something that can be used to kind of, at renewal time, help that. I'm not 100% certain on what the renewals are for video gaming licenses, though, if they're the same as kind of how we do liquor license renewals. I don't think they are. But at least on an annual basis, we're checking the accounts of all the liquor license holders. And if you lose your liquor license, that obviously affects your ability to have a gaming license as well.
Yeah, regarding this topic, similar to the previous topic, I mean, I think setbacks, I think are a good idea at this point. Unfortunately, we started without it, right? So what happened is what you think would happen. We had almost an arms race, among establishments. Everyone just got a gambling license, and we saw some establishments who are now very successful. Have gambling as a great source of supplemental income. So I mean, it has a value, but the problem is optics, right? I mean. We have one strip mall where we have two places right next to each other, or just about next to each other with gambling licenses. Three, actually. I'm sorry. We have three, right? All right in a row. And it's kind of funny when you look at the gambling revenue, they do cannibalize each other. Like that Chinese restaurant that we approved, I think they're our lowest performer, which is not surprising because they're right next to a bar with a gambling license and a Riverside with a gambling license, right? So the uncontrolled gambling spread is not the best use of our gambling license authority, in my opinion. We look at like Crosstown, which is our biggest, most profitable gambling establishment. There's nothing else around there. It's just right there. The next one's going to be. Not the Quick Trip. Help me out here. Safeway? Speedway.
Number one is Speedway. Number two is Rosati's.
No, incorrect. Per April, number one is Crosstown for profitability, and then on pure action, it's Speedway, right? And again, that's out by itself. It's your gas station, all that stuff. So I think setbacks have a lot of value because we see they do cannibalize each other when they're close. And more importantly, we have the arms race part of it. The other part of it that I keep on coming back to, we have a casino opening up with 1,200 slot machines coming in. And, my parents live near the Rivers Casino in Des Plaines. And it does change the environment for both the better and worse, right? I mean, in a better way, it's nice to have a great place to go to dinner. That you didn't have previously. It is nice to go to a casino occasionally and stop by. Plus, you have some hotels that we're going to have. We don't have any hotels right now. We're about to get 200 rooms right on the edge. We don't talk enough about that. And so there's value here, but the problem is saturation, right? As a homeowner here, I do get concerned when I realize somebody can get off the highway, drive down a massive casino complex, then they come down, they pass Speedway, there's more gambling right there, then they come down Wilson, and they're going to pass 3 gambling stops right there, right? So it is excessive. It's going to be very excessive very quickly. That's my take on it. So I think setbacks are definitely something worth looking into.
Back.
Yeah, I'm going to repeat a lot of what I said the previous one, where I just want to tie it back to our downtown plan and the goals of our downtown plan being a vibrant, community-focused, healthy economy. And healthy downtown economies need destinations that have that connective tissue, like Kevin was talking about, that you're going to go get dinner and you're going to get ice cream and you're going to do some shopping, and our downtown establishments with gaming by the gaming design lacks that connective tissue. It's very inward facing. It's very low engagement with everyone. So it just doesn't match. And I think every decision we make should match the plan that we approved unanimously. And I also think that healthy connective tissue is something that other investors are looking for. So other people looking to build in our downtown, looking to invest in a business downtown, are looking to see, do I have complementary uses nearby that's going to feed into the health of my investment here? And I think if we start to signal out that we're trying to make this a healthy ecosystem and think about it as a system, I'm so glad we're talking about this now and not when there's an applicant at the podium, because we have to think about the health of the whole system and not the health of one single individual business owner. That's our job up here. We represent the whole system, not just individuals. So setbacks, yes. Caps, sure. And definitely focusing on the downtown, at least citywide. I'd be in support of that too.
Yeah, I mean, same for me. A lot of this is similar to the previous discussion, just curating what we want in our downtown and being able to have a voice with this is, I guess, what I'm asking for, to be able to say no. I'm not blanket statement saying I want to ban all video gaming. I just want the ability to say yes or no as we determine what we want our downtown to look like. The other thing that I keep thinking about as we have these discussions is what is the point for businesses having video gambling? And we have had some businesses come to us and say, basically, I can't stay open unless I have this. That's concerning to me, in that we have storefronts, we have brick and mortar spaces in downtown where we could possibly have a new thriving business, but that place is now being used by a business that isn't thriving by itself and is relying on video gambling to stay open. And I'm going to use my own business as an example. Let's just say another thriving, wonderful coffee shop comes to town, and I no longer can compete with what they're doing, or my service is bad, or my food is bad, or my drink is bad. And I'm not thinking of any specific place right now in downtown. I'm using this just as my own example. And I'm like, I'm going to get video gambling at my coffee shop so I can stay open. Nobody wants that. I need to vacate so that somebody else can come in and use my downtown space because we all want better restaurants. We all want better businesses down here. When I say better, we are looking for, not to be like Geneva, but we're always pointing to Geneva and saying, why don't we have that? You know what they don't have? They don't have video gambling. And so we have to think of the broader picture like that too. We don't have many vacant places. Well, Jim might say otherwise, but we don't have a lot of vacant places in our downtown that are move-in ready. And so our move-in ready places just being filled with non-thriving businesses. And if so, if they have video gaming, they might never go away. Also, this was a few years ago, but I was driving up 31 up to Elgin, and they do have a casino up there, and I'm driving up 31, and there's just video gambling after video gambling along the road. And and they still had the flashing signs on their windows, and it's just not very attractive. And there's a lot of other towns that have that. So I don't think there's going to be an oversaturation. I think it's just one of those things. People are going to gamble, and if you have it, they will come. So we have to make the decision of how much of that do we want in our downtown.
It's no secret my position on video gaming. Mark, you and I used to, spend hours talking about that. And to me, the issue has always been the image that it portrays. Geneva doesn't have it, but Batavia does, and we said it was well, we'll do conditional use. We have never turned someone down, as far as it. So what does conditional use do? You all spend a lot of time in these roles. It's coming up, coming up on 9:30 here. You spend hours in preparing for meetings. We should have control over things like this. We should be able to set, and the CAP doesn't say no more. CAP says we will decide. And I'm supportive of that, of this council being able to decide the future of Batavia. That is our role here, trying to get to our strategic plan. Since I've been on council, we have wanted to be our downtown to be more vibrant. And I don't think video gambling helps that at all. In fact, I believe it moves in the wrong direction. So for this issue and the last issue, I think there should be caps so this council can decide. We are the ones that answer to our constituents. And if our constituents are telling us, hey, we want gambling, then fine. But that's not what I'm hearing. And when the windmill so-called convenience store went up, when I first saw that sign, I just thought, oh boy, we're going to hear about this one. What a sore thumb in our town. And so, again, it's not the moral issue on gambling, and I've said this every time. This is about the image of Batavia, and I don't want that image, and I think this council is who can control that image. And by having caps in place, we can decide if there's going to be another gambling establishment or not, or another liquor store or not. So I firmly support having some ordinance that gives us control. Setbacks would help. Cap is a way to go. All the other towns or many other towns. This isn't not following suit of what other towns do to manage their towns. I think we're missing an opportunity to manage our town the way we want to manage it.
One problem I have with all these discussions is when people want to make it this global thing, the way, like for instance, just because it was just said, the way we want to manage it. That's you speaking for yourself and for a few others on the council. It's not we as the collective. I mean, that's clearly not been the case throughout this entire time I've been on council with you. I don't see, and all these constituents, I just don't see this uprising of people that are coming out talking about, the evils of the gambling and how it's ruining the downtown. I mean, I just don't see it. I think that we worked very well with everyone together to make it so that there isn't all the signs that, for instance, Alderman Lehman said she saw going up Route 31. There's no signs anymore. You go in and actually, whenever I'm in the places and there's somebody sitting there, I've seen them actually interact quite a bit. And I'm mostly at overflows where I see the occurrence in that regard. I think that this is just, we've talked about this so many times, and I think it's just a bunch of personal views is what I think. And I think it's trying to make what I view as the minority to get their way. And I'm thinking that I don't see any bad image of Batavia. I haven't heard any bad image of Batavia, that we're some gambling mecca and that we're just going down the path of decay. Just don't see it. I think our regulations are, just like the last time, I think the regulations are in place, they're appropriate, and I think that they've been utilized appropriately. And so I just don't see the issue, and I don't see why we're still talking about this again. And I know it takes 3 people to have a discussion placed on something. I mean, what can it take 3 people to say, we don't want a discussion about this anymore? I mean, we've talked about this so many times. And I think it's just trying to get another bite at the apple because, people didn't get what they wanted last time.
Thanks. So with this discussion, I sit where I've always sat, and I see this as a tool for the businesses This is an opportunity for them to make some revenue to help them either keep a roof over their head, pay their overhead costs, allow to have great specials that residents come in and they enjoy. But I see that as that revenue. And then this is also revenue that the city makes for us to do some pretty nice things for the community. And it could be money that is spent by residents within the community that, you know, they're just out trying to have a good time. And it could be people from outside of the community that come and contribute to that. But we're able to do a lot of nice things for our residents here because we've used this source as some revenue to do nice things in our community. I will continue to support this, not put a cap on it. I see this as a tool for the businesses. And when we make decisions, some of it has to do with what are we doing to help our business community? And others are, what are we doing to help our residents? I can tell you that in some of the circles that I swing in, this is a non-issue for them. Talked to my therapist about this, and she said, if you don't have somebody that doesn't have gambling on their phone with sports bet, then you're being naive about something. It's prevalent, it's all over the place, and you can't stop it. And quite honestly, some of the people that I've met in some of these establishments may be people that we don't want in our area, but they're pretty nice people. They're pretty supportive. So I'll continue to use this as a tool for the businesses so they can run their business.
You next.
Sure. So a few thoughts. The first one I'll start with is I am in favor of setbacks and capping for gaming licenses for the reasons that the people that spoke in support of them have stated. So I don't want to keep repeating that, but mainly because it fosters community. I'm not saying I want to ban them. That's not what I'm saying. I do want to diversify, to use Abby's language, and have a say in how our town looks. Some of you mentioned downtown. Yes, downtown's the heart of Batavia, but some of us who are near Randall Road or Kirk are interested citywide. I am interested in citywide because in my talks with the community, the thing that I hear constantly is we don't need more gaming. So although, you know, there are different people that speak different ways with other people, but I have not heard anyone tell me that they want more. And until someone tells me that, I will speak otherwise. But no one has told me that. And we were elected to serve and represent our constituents, and so far I have not heard that. So just wanted to mention that. Also, where I grew up, the community that I grew up in the neighboring towns, we had a road similar to Randall Road, and there is a proliferation of gaming and smoke and vaping and alcohol and liquor stores. And I remember, you know, when I was like 10, I started forming core memories, that it looked like a lot, right? Like motels and such. If you go there now, it's every single establishment lined up. So to say that us not having control and just is not important, to me it is important, because I saw towns next to my town where this has just really proliferated to a point where it does not look like a place that I see thriving, that I would want to go engage in and bring my family to. And again, going back to our strategic plan, we're trying to foster community, a vibrant town. So to me, that the setbacks and capping would help with that. So I don't know what's next here, if I'd like to motion for us to draft an ordinance with that language. Is that what I can do?
It would be amending the current ordinance that we have. Correct me, that would be the way to to properly do that would be to amend the ordinance that we have.
Yeah, I mean, right now, we have a conditional use for video gaming. We would probably need to take, if we're going to amend the zoning code for it, we would have to do a text amendment to the zoning code to codify that. We could also do some things in regards to the video gaming regulations themselves too, and put caps and other things like that in there as well. So we'll have to look at that and see what makes the most sense. But if it's a zoning code thing, it has to go to the Plan Commission and public hearing and all that.
So before we do that, can we allow everybody to have a say before we start putting motions out there and kind of cutting people off?
Point of order, that's Robert's rules. I do believe it's a personal privilege of the alderwoman to make any motion she chooses.
She has the floor right now, so we'll wait until she's done.
So I was asking about it, and so it sounds like we can change the language for zoning, similar to what we talked about in the last item, where you're going to come to us and give us our options on what we can do. Is that maybe something that we should do instead? Like where you present to us the different options that we can do, either one, A, B, and C, or a combination?
Yeah, we could put together some options for you. I mean, we had done that some time ago, just to give you choices for, what we want to do. If we want to do caps, if we want to do setbacks, if we want to do, use limitations in certain zoning districts, those are all things that, could be considered. So we kind of tried to put that together, but, just very broadly tonight. So, but if there's consensus from the majority to, develop some type of restrictions, we can certainly come back with either a memo that, outlines those things, and you could pick your what you'd like to have. Again, if it involves zoning code amendments, we will have to go back to the council, to Plan Commission, before we can adopt an ordinance for those types of things.
So would I motion for restrictions and you develop the language that we would pick?
Yeah, I mean, if we could have a motion we can put together the options for you, and then you would have a motion to say, okay, we want to restrict caps, or we want to restrict setbacks, or all the above, or whatever you want to do. And then from that, we would take direction to say, okay, well, to do that, we're going to have to go to Plan Commission to develop an amendment to the zoning code, or it's just a matter of amending the video gaming ordinance itself.
I motion for them to draft the language for us to have options to choose from.
Second. Third. So we have a motion on the floor to have staff draft options, is the way I heard it, for video gaming restrictions.
Yeah.
Okay. And do we have any discussion on that motion?
Yeah, I would just like to speak as in response to what Alderman.
Well, the discussion right now is just about the motion.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, it's about the topic.
Motion though?
She closed off public comment with the motion.
Closed off comment, that's Robert's rules.
No.
She made a
That's not the
motion,
case.
so now we're discussing the motion.
Okay, stop. We have a motion on the floor. I just asked for discussion on that motion. That's what we're going to talk about, is the discussion on the motion, whether or not we're going to have
motion
it.
because I think we should move forward with that motion, because I believe we live in a representative democracy. We are the representatives of this town right now, not a council from 4 years ago. So if it's another bite at the apple, so be it. It's a different council, and that's what we need to strive for. So I strongly urge you to vote in favor of the motion to direct staff to put options on the table for this council to decide what is best for Batavia, not a council from 8 years ago.
That was not 8 years ago, so I don't even know.
Okay, no more comments. Chris, come on. Abby, were you next? Okay, I'll go back to Leah.
I would be interested to see what like percentage of revenue is, if that could be included in what, I guess what I'm trying to say is where gaming can't be over a certain percentage of their total revenue or something. Because that goes back to I think other communities do this. I think there's ways to do that. I don't know. That just goes back to my concern that gaming.
For different types of uses, for example, restaurants versus bars, there have been certain types of percentage of revenue. You can't have over 50% of the revenue by alcohol. That's very hard to track and monitor. we could look at some other things to see if there's other things to say that this is not primarily, I mean, as we've said, you can't have a gaming parlor. We've pretty consistently said that. But I don't know how else we would do that with the revenue without, going into some of their books and looking at some of that stuff. That's going to be a little more challenging.
Totally understand. So I guess what I'm asking is, can you just look into if there's other municipalities that are doing something like that?
Sure. We can.
We can certainly do that. One item that I did see in other municipalities is kind of floor area versus, a certain percentage of non-gaming space to allow a certain amount of either terminals or gaming space.
Which we have that in our ordinance already, or something similar.
We don't have an outright requirement of minimum area, but we do have other controls that we have established, which is like the 1 year before you can seek gaming, that have kind of minimized the cafe type uses.
We have a cap on number of units allowed.
Yes, so, we have limit to 5.
Yeah.
Except for at the truck usage. We're at 6.
Lodge has 6.
And Moose is grandfathered because they had it under the county.
Right.
Alderman Pieper?
I was just going to point out something that we haven't discussed tonight that would probably be a part of this motion is clarification on how the current limits from churches and schools go into account, because there was a lot of vagaries with the most recent example. And it really boiled down to what exactly is this room in this building being used for? And that's just very ill-defined. I would like to see us maybe just define it based on the property line, which is a lot more, of just a objective metric. That would be my suggestion, just to kind of get that out of the way in the future. It's 100 feet.
I think that would have to be an answer either to come from the state.
No, we can do that.
We can
absolutely do that.
We
Yes.
can add that. Okay.
Absolutely can.
Mm-hmm.
We don't agree with the state's interpretation. We think it was erroneous, but that's their determination.
So just clarifying that, I think, would be good too.
Do I have to amend my motion?
No, we can.
Okay.
Yeah, I wanted to say that we have an example of that in our code already when we discussed basically outlawing food trucks on public property. We drew circles, and I think it's included in our ordinance. We drew circles around all the brick and mortar restaurants and said, you can't be here. And it covered our entire downtown. So included in this, when we were discussing setbacks, when we're discussing churches and what constitutes the end of a church and what isn't, let's put it on the map. Let's put a visual out there for the public to see. Here in this purple area, you cannot put any new gaming in the map. And then there's no ambiguity. It is our own rule. We don't have to rely on the state to interpret.
Yeah, within the memo, we did suggest that we could come back with some a map depicting different standards for the council to consider.
We did that with cannabis when we were talking about that too. We had a different radius for setbacks too as well.
Alderman Fehrenbach?
Just to clarify, so we have 13 current gambling establishments, 63 video gaming terminals, or those would not be touched by any ordinance we would pass going forward, correct?
Depends on what you pass.
Well,
we would, as we were kind of discussing earlier, there's certain rights to, once you have established a license, it would probably be a situation where if we had a regulation change that affected a current business, it would be if they ever surrendered the license, or if there was a cap and it was reduced, it may not be able to be reestablished at that location.
Yeah, it's a little different because, we have two components. We have the conditional use and then we have the video gaming license. Conditional use, there's some vested rights in that, but the gaming license, you can say, okay, we're going to, as of this year, we're not going to renew any new licenses or what have you. I mean, that is potentially an option. We'd have to review that with the city attorney to see the legality of that. But, conditional uses, you do have some vested interest in that zoning if we grant that.
And not all of our current locations have conditional uses. Correct. Because we did establish that later.
Any more comments on the motion? Max, would you take a roll call for us?
Moved by Lohman, correct?
Yes.
All right. Lohman?
Aye.
Pieper?
Aye.
Fehrenbach?
Aye.
White?
Aye.
Baraza?
Aye.
Beck?
Aye.
Malay?
Aye.
Malone?
Aye.
Solfa?
No.
Wolf?
No.
Barron?
No.
Lehman?
Aye.
All right, that would be
9.3?
Yep, 9.3. It'll be on. We'll work on it. And
Yeah, we'll have to put together a memo for options, so we'll put on future committees.
Okay. Is there any more discussion on potential changes to it, or do we want to leave it at that until we get the memo back?
I'm surprised nobody brought up violations to our current holders, but
I actually
whatever.
have that highlighted in my notes to go
I
up
was
to
gonna-
next. I wanted to know just if we could get a report on our current holders, and do they have sight lines to the gaming? We don't have to go through the setbacks because we all know that one. What was the other thing that I've taken so many notes that now I've lost it, but I did highlight it.
I was going to say violations.
Violations, are they advertising in the windows, and sightlines from bars? Because yes, there is one downtown that's not like advertising in the window, but it's like just a foot back from the window. So it feels like it's kind of within the spirit of what we were trying to accomplish there. So setbacks, sightlines, violations, advertising in windows.
No, I meant putting violations for people, like put a violation on the current holders if they were to violate one of our current policies.
Yeah, that's what I was asking for.
No, but we don't have fines for them. And that was one of the options that they had put in the memo. So.
Wanted to see what the status was across the board.
I got closed, so done.
Okay, I think we're done with this one. Move on to project status. Max?
Hello all, I'll try to be kind of quick. So staff from administration and police met with Beth and Kristen of Main Street to talk about DORA, a designated outdoor refreshment area. We're trying to work on something that works for kind of everyone involved. So we're working with Main Street on that, and they're mostly going to take the lead on what that'll entail, working with the business community and whatnot. We met with Craig Schneider, our contractor for the green program. We're launching 2026 very soon, if it hasn't already been launched. Notifications are soon, and we're going to have Craig plan to give an update to you all about last year's program sometime this summer. And we're continuing our conversations with Brattle about feedback from the IRP discussions, so they're continuing to address some of those points that you all brought up. Lori Botterman and our intern Amelia worked on principal photography for a video series that's coming up. They worked with Rotolo students, along with Officer Webb and I'm not going to say Officer River, even though I just did. They're working on bike safety, and those videos should be coming up soon about our new e-bike regulations and all that fun stuff. Lori also met with the Water Street Studios Public Art Initiative to select the artists for the America 250 mural on City Hall over by the police department, as well as art benches in the plaza, which you probably may have seen. The bathroom was delivered, and we had a nice big crane there for that. It was really fun. Wendy and some of our chiefs attended a session with Elgin Community College on apprenticeship programs. That's a really cool thing where they're going to try to get a pipeline for fire and police and other hard-to-fill positions. We also know that the weather is warming up, and we've got our bike and pedestrian counters doing some counting. We've provided you some of the data, and as well as the ramp being opened, we're seeing some really good ridership and using of that ramp, so we're excited about that. Little fun fact, wastewater typically treats about 2 million gallons of rain a day. However, during some of the heavy rains last week, we peaked and had 12 million gallons of water running through the plant. One of our strategic plan items is separating sewers, and we've done a really good job of that, but it just shows the continued investment needed into separating those sewers. We're spending a lot of money on improving and expanding capacity at the wastewater plant. This should also be, part of that too, is continuing that strategic plan item. We also got word today that we got a $21,000 grant for a new Lucas device, which does automatic CPR. That's one of the devices that we'll need for our new ALS squad that we're starting up. And that you approved and hired additional staffing for. So that was a nice thing from the state. And that is all I have.
Does that cover the cost of the unit?
Yes.
Good. Okay.
And that was with our grant writing consultant, who we pay $18,000 a year. So they have paid for themselves yet again.
Again, we should probably have quarterly or,
We have a grant.
So that way we can see, okay, this quarter we got 200 grand from them.
We have a grant tracking document I can try to remember to share with all of you.
Okay.
It tracks both our wins and where we haven't gotten grants, but
I think that's also something that publicly should be out there at our meetings that we talk about, that, hey, we invested $18,000, but we've got 500,000 in a year.
one more thing I didn't mention was we had talked, or Andrea had come up to talk about Safe Streets for All and applying for that grant. They did put in an application to look at some of the intersections along Brandel Road. So that grant has been put in for. We don't know when we'll get it or if we will get it, but they did apply for that.
Any questions for Max? Thank you. Do we have any other business tonight? No. We have a motion for adjournment. Oh, I'm sorry, executive session.
Too quick.
I'm going to have a motion to go into executive session for purchase of real estate.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That's me.
Aye.
So we got one in opposition.